Is 6:34, and we are going to call the January 16th Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting to order. We have two excused absences, one from Ms. Womack and one from Ms. Zimmerman. Do I have a motion to excuse?
I move we excuse their absence.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So please rise for the invocation. Heavenly Father, you have blessed us with a community that supports one another. As we work here, help us to find the solutions that are amenable to our wonderful community. We praise you and we thank you for this coming year, and we look forward to all that you have planned for us. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, yes, ma'am. Now we're moving on to citizens to be heard. This is the only time during the meeting that a citizen can address the committee. It is the opportunity for visitors and guests to address the committee on any issue, to include agenda items. All visitors wishing to speak must fill out the sign-in roster, which I have, prior to the start of the meeting. The committee may not debate any non-agenda issue, nor may any action be taken on any non-agenda issue at this time. However, the committee may present any factual responses to items brought up by citizens. All remarks shall be addressed to the committee as a body. Remarks may also be addressed to any individual member of the committee, so long as the remarks are about matters of local public concern and not disruptive to the meeting or threatening to the members or any attendee. Any person violating this policy may be requested to leave the meeting, but no person may be requested to leave or forced to leave the meeting because of the viewpoints expressed. This meeting is live streamed, and if anybody would like to make comments on any matter regarding the city of Cibolo or on an agenda item and have this item read at the meeting, please email Ms. Simics at psimics@cibolotx.gov or telephone 210-566-6111 before 5 p.m. the date of the meeting. So the first citizen is Billy Kolbasia. Sir, would you like to come forward and address the meeting?
I'm just here to see about this road.
Okay, so you're here to listen and observe about the road. Thank you for coming. And the next person is Ms. Palmer.
Thank you. So several of you guys know me. I was very involved in the toll road discussion and debate when the toll road was eliminated. And, you know, there were several reasons why we were not in favor of the toll road. Part of it was because there's a gravesite behind our property. I live at 453 Tolly Road. And so there's a gravesite right behind our house between ours and Stephen Lumen's, and so they weren't able to go that way because they couldn't interrupt that. There were also other issues, of course, financial cost, benefit, you know, the amount of traffic. And so, you know, when we first talked about adding those houses behind our properties off of Tolly Road, the deal and the arrangement was that they would contribute funding to repair Tolly Road. And that money was, you know, applied, and the city has that funding. And so, you know, in discussions with various members of the city, you know, we were in favor of keeping the road the same as what it is, but doing repairs to it to make it functional. My house has my mailbox solid brick in the ground, and my fence has been hit 3 times, almost killed somebody. It took down the whole electrical thing and knocked it over and caught fire and almost killed a kid because how bad that road is and how much damage it is. So they've patched bits and pieces of it, but it's still really rough. And so, you know, we can't wait to use the money that's been given to repair the road. And instead of trying to make it 6 lanes for many years down the road, we need to just repair it. Right now, it's a cutoff road for people that are trying to avoid steel traffic in the mornings. when people are there picking up their kids, and it's a way to get around there to 78, particularly for people going to Randolph Air Force Base. So we get a lot of traffic going very quickly on that road, for those of you who drive it and live there, and it's already bad. And so, we think widening it isn't really a solution. We just need to repair it, and we can't wait the many, many years that this keeps getting pushed off to try to get it to a 4 or even 6-lane road. There's also other implications, of course, flooding. We have a flooding problem there on the road. And of course, all that water from those extra houses runs down into Main Street and causes additional problems to the city. But it's also the proposed solution is taking water away from the ponds and the livestock that feed on that road. A lot of the people who still live on that road have property, including myself and my neighbors. There's cows all around us and animals, and we all have ponds. And those ponds run into each other, and redirecting that away from it will impact the deer, the other animals, the livestock that people live there have it. And it looks like on the map, which is hard to tell, it looks like there's a road that looks like it's going to cut between Tolley Road and 1103 the opposite direction. And that actually, according to the map, looks like it's almost right through my house. Or between myself and my neighbor's house. So unless the city's prepared to buy 2 $1 million houses, they're going to have a really hard time running a road right in between us. So, I just don't think there's been a lot of thought put into some of this stuff. And my recommendation would be that it come off of the committee master plan until there is a better process in place or a more formal process, and just repair the road with the money that was allocated specifically by those new home divisions to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Palmer, just so you know,
Take this.
yes, I do strongly agree with you. Tolley Road is not really a road; it's a floodplain, and when it rains, it's basically a lake. And Malcolm, our neighbor, sent me a video of the lake that is Tolley Road Lake. And I forwarded that on to staff so they are aware of it. And one of the issues when they were talking about fixing that road was channeling the water away from the beautiful attributes that the surface water allows on many of our neighbors' property, and including the livestock support. So it's beautification and livestock, and it's not something we should be doing. So I very much agree with you on that. Okay, moving on to item 6, the consent agenda, approval of minutes from the December 19th, 2023 Master Plan Advisory Committee meetings. Has everybody received a copy of the minutes? And when y'all are ready, I just need a motion to approve.
I'll go ahead and put a motion to approve the minutes from December 19, 2023 Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to 7, the discussion and action items of what we're here for today. A discussion presentation by staff regarding an update to the city's comprehensive master plan and the IH-10 corridor plan, including a welcome and introduction, a place types, future land use, master thoroughfare plan, and next steps. Hi, good
Hey,
evening. Happy
good
New
evening.
Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you all. I guess just wanting to follow up with you all. I know at a previous meeting, we kind of talked about like getting emails and everything, and I've just been doing a follow-up email. Does that work with you all? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, thank
Awesome.
you.
So yeah, we'll continue doing that going forward. For today, we will kind of just do a closing of the loop as much as we can with the previous November 30th meeting. If you remember, we kind of had some discussions about place types, future land use, the master thoroughfare plan. So hopefully after today's meeting, we can get closer in those steps with kind of having a framework for the plan that our consultants, Kimley Horn, will be preparing for us. So we're going to have some exercises for each of those, beginning with place types, going down to the future land use, and then that master thoroughfare plan. Just as a recap of our last meeting in December, we had I think a really good meeting because we got consensus on the guiding principles and the vision statement. And as you all remember, that vision statement, it is Cibolo is a community where citizens or residents collaborate to shape their civic future by promoting its rich history, preserving a small town feel, and investing in balanced development. So that kind of came from, the last vision statement that we had in 2016, along with you all's recommendations to word it in this way, as well as with those guiding principles. If you all remember, we had 7 to start off with, and we condensed it down to 5. And I'll read this off here. Number 1 is prioritize infrastructure to support existing needs and future growth. 2 is plan for and promote the health, safety, security, and general welfare of all residents. 3, balance growth through responsible planning of city assets and land to promote a community environment. 4, provide parks, recreation, trails, and open space to serve citizens and visitors while protecting the natural environment and wildlife. And 5, preserve the history of Cibolo and promote the friendly small town feel through community programs and events. So I feel like based off of what we accomplished in that meeting, we're on a good track. So today we're hopefully trying to get more consensus on some of these plan components, be it the place types, future land use plan, and the master thoroughfare plan. So with that, I think I'm gonna hand it off to Kelsey.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to step back just a little bit since we have a unique layout this time so that you guys don't have to strain your neck too much. Yes, so just wanted to show a little bit of where we've come from, where we are, so that way we know where we're going. Just a review of our comprehensive plan chapters. As a reminder, we did agree to do 7 of those updates in this 2024 master plan. Those chapters were goals and objectives, demographics, land use and character, transportation, housing and neighborhoods, community facilities and public services, and implementation. The 2 chapters that were not updated as part of this process were the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space chapter and the Economic Development chapter. And the reason for that, I know we've shared, is that the intent is to have a specific deep dive intentional parks master plan that will be forthcoming. And then for economic development, the Economic Development Corporation is actively doing their strategic plan update that will serve that chapter or components. Additionally, there is a sub-area plan in the I-10 corridor that you've seen brought forward a few times that the EDC is also funding, and we'll have some of those components coming back at future meetings as well. There's a lot of things that have been going on. You guys have been very active for almost a year now in this master plan update. So we did just wanted to call to your attention some of the good stuff that's already been happening throughout this process. Obviously, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot of focus groups, a lot of engagement going out, events that are going on, work with city staff to get information. But wanted to highlight specifically some of the touch points where you all have been instrumental in giving us feedback that's already made its way into the report. So our phase 1 project initiation, nailed that. That was good. We are way into this. Phase 2 was our data collection analysis. So a lot of things that you received reports on with like our demographics and then those base maps that you provided feedback on to make sure we were capturing the appropriate information. Phase 3 was our plan drafts and recommendations. That's what we're in the meat of right now. And as Mr. Spencer mentioned, we provided some great guidance and consensus on a vision statement at your last meeting, as well as guiding principles. Tonight we have a pretty ambitious agenda, but we're hoping to get to hear your feedback and discussion on place types, the future land use map, and then the master thoroughfare plan. Really getting your feedback, hopefully getting you to a place where you're comfortable with the direction that it's moving in so that you can get to the place of making a recommendation on those plan elements. And then in our future meetings, looking at moving forward to strategic initiatives and then that actual implementation matrix, right? The action items of how do we get to all those wonderful things that we're going to do for the community. Phase 4 is the implementation. That's what's going to be forthcoming. Right now, we have tentatively a next date of February 29th as being a potential date for the Master Plan Advisory Committee and the EDC to be able to make recommendations on the comp plan and then on that I-10 sub-area plan. But I do want to make clear, if we get through this process and say, hey, we need another meeting, we need to discuss this more, flesh this out, it's not going to be ready by February 29th, this is very flexible depending on what the committee needs in order to feel comfortable getting to that place of recommendation. So don't let that scare you. We just have high hopes and we're ambitious, but if we need to recalibrate a little, we can definitely do that. So with that, what we'd like to do is we're going to move to our first exercise, which is actually going to be using this purple wall here. So if you want to take just a minute and maybe bring your chairs over, we can bring a table over, but we're really going to be focused on this side of the room for about an hour or so. So please, if you want to stand up, stretch, grab some food, and then just meet yourself over here, and we'll get started. All right, perfect. We'll go ahead and get started on this because we are hoping over the next hour to really walk through those place types. As Mr. Spencer mentioned, you've seen this a few times starting at the November 9th meeting, got some feedback from you all, and then went forward at the November 30th meeting. We have some other revisions we'd like you to take a look at, see if we've captured correctly what your general thoughts were on these things. We certainly don't want anyone to feel rushed. If we need to take time to discuss, absolutely. Just as a point of kind of timekeeping, if we were to try to get through all 11 of these in an hour, that gives us about 5 minutes and some change per place type. Not saying we have to do it all in 5. We might have some that take longer, some that are shorter. And if we need to stretch it out, that's 5. But just hoping we don't get too stuck on any one place type as we're going through. So just as a reminder, kind of what are place types. I know we've discussed this before. You all are well versed in this. Place types are not zoning. So we need to make sure we're not thinking about it as specific single type zoning. Usually how it's related to, where sometimes people think of it as like it's the palette of development, right? The colors, the tools that you can have for your city and the future development patterns that are in there. And generally thinking of them describing the desired character of the place, right? So one of our place types right now is Old Town, right? And when you hear Old Town, it should kind of give you some guidance of what should it look like and how is that different from other parts of the city. So this is the table as of November 30th. We're hoping to take the feedback that you all give us tonight, and then we're going to update this. So this is not the final version. This is just a draft, but we're going to kind of reference this throughout the night. On your second page was just a comparison of the future land uses that were in the 2016 master plan, and then what the proposed 2023-2024 plans are. So where you had just 3 residential place types in 2016, 2023 you had 4 right now. Where there were 3 of the kind of commercial or destination place types, there's 4 within this new one that's proposed, and then so on. So as we're going through, and we're going to go through each one one at a time, so everyone has a chance to digest it, process, think of if we've captured it correctly. There are, in general, 3 questions that we want to make sure are being addressed every time we pull up one of these place types. So the first thing is, as we're looking at the place type, is it speaking to what that predominant use is in that place type, in that area? 2, where is it likely to be located? So is it something that's out on the perimeter, the outskirts of the city? Is it something that's right in the heart? Is it on major thoroughfares? What does that character piece look like? And then 3, we want to see that, make sure it's describing the orientation of the uses and improvements that might be on that property. And then, of course, if there's anything that we've missed the mark on, please give us that feedback. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know if we're going to use compatible uses, like adjacent uses.
We do not have that for tonight, but I think that is something we could look at. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Maybe that's something we can talk about as the group when we're getting to that 4th question of it. Like that. Thank you.
Well, in the master plan, isn't it supposed to have like adjacent, like compatible uses in a master plan in general?
So in typical, what it's looking at are our individual place types, right? What the primary use is, that should make sense in there. That secondary use is also looking at compatibility. But those place types are sometimes used as kind of that transition between different place types, right? That might not otherwise be compatible. Yes. So I do think that could also bleed over into when we do the future land use map and making sure that those place types are also logical and orderly. Yes, ma'am. Perfect. So we'll start with the very first one. This was a new one that the committee had thought was a gap that was missing back on the November 9th meeting, which is our rural agricultural residential. And if the committee will just bear with me, I hate reading it off, but just knowing that the camera angles might not be ideal for people that are at home, I probably will go ahead and read a lot of this off just in transparency so people can hear that. I know you can read, but they probably can't zoom in to the font, although it is very large. Here. Perfect. So this was a new one, our rural residential / agricultural. And so the character and intent of this is that rural residential is single-family housing on large lots located on the outskirts of the community or in enclaves within the community. Agricultural includes undeveloped properties that may be active farms or ranches, as well as agricultural businesses. Residential uses are oriented to the interior of the site and may or may not include farm and livestock restrictions. Unlike traditional residential, this place type preserves the rural character by requiring residential uses at very low densities, deep setbacks, a high degree of separation between buildings, and limited curb cuts. Roads in these areas have minimal improvements as they are not intended to accommodate higher levels of traffic that may be found in other place types. So when we think about the land use considerations, the primary land use in this place type would be single-family detached homes, agricultural, and parks and open space. Those secondary land uses would be civic and institutional, agricultural business, and small-scale retail. That would just be to support anyone who's living out there or working out there. And then indicators and assumptions would be that these lot sizes are greater than 2 acres. In general, we try to provide maybe just some example locations of some place types where you might already see this within the city. And so this, you can think typically probably the picture that comes up are those large tracts of undeveloped land south of FM 78 and all the way down to IH 10. And then kind of an enclave within the city, you might think of the Borgfeld property that's there on Cibolo Valley Drive, just south of where Legacy School is. So as we get through that, we'll kind of go through start through our 3 questions and then open it up. In general, do you feel that this has captured the predominant use that's in this place type?
I do. The only question I have about the statement that that there may be restrictions, may or may not include farm and livestock restrictions. So what does that statement mean? Where it says residential use are oriented to the interior of the site and may or may not include farm and livestock restrictions.
Yes, so when including this was just acknowledging that not everyone who is in the rural residential may have some sort of livestock use on it. But there could be instances, right, where it's maybe not having that on there. But we wanted to, excuse me, I'm not saying this correctly. Trying to show that this would be different from our other place types where are typically within subdivisions that would likely have an agricultural restriction or a livestock restriction on it.
So, okay, so, and forgive my ignorance, but it seems like we're trying to obviously define or redefine these categories, these rural residential agri. Now, my question is, as far as the master plan, is there any further implications of this definition? Meaning, or is it going to impact the potential like UDCs? Is it going to impact, planning and zoning definitions? Or is this something that is solely going to be restricted to the master plan and that's it?
So a couple different things. That's a great question for everyone
just
on here.
curious.
Yes, no. Yes, of course. That's why we want to make sure we get it right, because when there's unclarity, that can lead to confusion later on, right? So we want to make sure we're getting this the right way the first time. So a couple different things. The first item, does it affect our UDC? So elements of our comp plan will trickle down into how we update our Unified Development Code. So again, these things do not become strict zoning categories, but they could enhance or come into play when zoning is being discussed. They are entirely separate, but we would want to make sure that we do have zoning that captures all the different place types, right, that they are being considered. The second thing is part of, I'm thinking, most simply, with the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, one of the things that they consider when they're looking at rezones or conditional use permits, to Ms. Latimer's point, compatibility is one of the items that they have to consider. And so they would be looking at, okay, if we rezone, does it meet the character and intent of what the comprehensive master plan says? So there will be elements of, yes, yep, which will come into the flume, yes. Absolutely.
Are we dealing with just restrictions or the farm and livestock exemptions? I mean, the proper terminology when you look at it is agricultural exemptions. So are we dealing restrictions or exemptions?
I would say for this, from the master plan perspective, either one would be fine. I'm thinking maybe let me ask if the master plan committee would be more, if this is more capturing what you're thinking. Should it be maybe that, where is, I just lost the sentence.
It's the center.
Right here, this one, perfect. Maybe it could be may or may not include farm and livestock uses or operations. Is that maybe capturing more what the concern is there?
The intent of this, it should encompass farm and livestock. And so saying, I don't like that statement. Residential uses are oriented to the interior of the site and I don't like may or may not include farm and livestock restrictions, because we have a right to farm in Texas. And so I think, and so I don't like that if the intent, if the character and the intent of rural agricultural is for hobby farming, I guess would be the in name, we just call it ranching, whatever, then I think that needs, I'm very uncomfortable with that language. And I can read the intent and character from the old plan, if that might be helpful. It says, the rural residential future land use category is intended for areas within the city which will maintain a rural character during the plan horizon and beyond. These areas are comprised of natural, undeveloped areas, agriculture, and large estate lots with large lot minimums and greater setbacks. I think that captures it. It's a little like we have the untraditional residential, that's fine, I like that. Preserving the rural characteristics and low density and deep setbacks are all great. But a high degree of separation between buildings, I don't know what that means, because if you're going to be agricultural, there's a number of different kinds of buildings that may occur, and so you might not want your barn far because of the electric runs or water runs.
Just to sort of segue with that, just to sort of further explain my question. Now, again, this is character intent, right? You're getting very specific where you're going to like pull a permit for a building, and they're going to restrict you because of a high degree of separation, right? Define that. What's that mean? Is that a 10-foot or 100-foot setback? But I don't think that this document is going to dictate those things on UDC and permits for this type of land type, is it? Or is this sort of the general sort of consensus of what the city of Cibolo thinks that should look like?
It does not dictate it. This does not become
Rule
regulations
law, that's not
directly.
rule law.
No.
So that's not rule of law, right?
To address that very specifically, I, as a residential agricultural person, they used the master plan against me and denied my right to have ag because of the character and intent statements. And so I was denied. I spent thousands of dollars.
On a permit? What were you doing?
I was trying to get my land rezoned.
Okay, you were trying to rezone, okay.
Yes, and so I have a heightened level of concern as to the character and intent of rural agricultural residential specifically, and the language that we use to define it. And I think this is extremely restrictive and not the character and intent of what rural residential land should be. If you're going to go into land uses, that's where you can do it, but the statements need to be more general in the character and intent.
More broad, yeah, ambiguous, yeah.
So as a city girl, I would ask for other city people who are moving to Cibolo, explain to me what that means in plain English to you. Explain to me what it means to you.
Are you saying what the character and intent means to me of rural?
What's written here, what does this mean to you? Because it sounds to me that the wording needs to be very simple and very descriptive. Those are the two words that this needs to be to me, very simple and very descriptive. So tell me how that would look for, I'm a city girl, I'm not an agricultural, rural woman. And so explain to me how that should look.
So, did you want to?
So in my mind, because I'm a city girl, but I also have some country background, that kind of scares me because of the fact that as you're working the land, needs arise. Whether it's shelter for the cattle, whether it's for the hay, whether it's a barn, and so you have to map out your electric, your plumbing, your other utensils to utilize that land for the benefit of whatever stock, whether you're doing emus, you're doing chickens, you're doing cows, things change. Sometimes you might be doing cows and you switch to goats. So you need that freedom to function, whether it's a hobby or a living. And I think that scares me, that might prevent my freedom to change whatever agricultural use. If I want to start growing grapes, Okay, I did cows, hay's too expensive, the drought killed it, now I'm going to do grapes. So I need freedom to move around in that agricultural exemption.
So is the word restriction best?
Well, the residential uses are oriented to the interior of the site. Well, okay, so now you're dictating that you've already come down and said that the roads in these areas have minimal improvements as they are not intended to accommodate higher levels of traffic found in the place types. But I live off of Tolly Road. And so many of the people living in this very busy part of the city, that's part of the issues that we're suffering through is the lack of the road improvement, not for us. But if I do put a tractor on that road because I have to transport, like, and the other reason why the buildings are bothering me is because we use porta huts, we use chicken tractors, we use pole barns, we use a bunch of different animal-specific type buildings. And so you're just putting a lot of language in there that is not the character and intent of rural agricultural residential until we get to development.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
do we need help me? Do we need a definition of character and intent?
So
Well, that's not, if, go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I get exactly what you're saying. And so in this old character and intent, it reads that this use category is intended for areas within the city which will maintain a rural character. And I think that's the word you need to use. And then it says during the plan horizon and beyond, these areas are comprised of natural undeveloped areas, agriculture, large estate lots with large. And so it doesn't go into restricting how you build the building, where you build the building, the distance of the buildings. I think this is too zony. This is way too zony.
Perfect. So
Quick question, if you pull do the permit folks who are reviewing your plans, do they go back to this definition to review your permit? Now, I understand if you want to rezone your property, let's say, from agriculture to SF4 or something like that, yeah, maybe they might look at that, right? But if you're going to build a building, however, you said a pole barn or something like that, does the, the engineering cell, the inspection, do they look at this definition and use that as their guiding principle, or
Yes, they will.
they will? Or-
Especially
Now,
if they-
should they?
So,
Especially if they can use it against you.
Okay, well, then that might not, well, then that might be a policy question then,
so
really.
if I may.
Sure.
You know, I really tasked Aaron and Kelsey to write out the place types because they were in very draft form before tonight's meeting, your packet, right? So we worked with Kimley Horn. They had an initial draft. We took it to the next level. Just like your vision statement and your 5 guiding principles, we try to put something on paper versus bringing to you a blank sheet. So we're listening to you, and we want you to tell us just what doesn't work up here. And then collaboratively with Ms. Latimer saying, do you all agree with Carol's comment that restriction should be removed? Tell us how you can own this, and that's what we'll do. So the first thing is I wanted to make clear, like that one sentence, there's a lot of talk around it. Make a suggestion of remove it or modify it, and then let's go on to the other parts. And I totally understand how you're talking about on agricultural properties. Buildings might be close to one another. They're not necessarily 5 feet from your property line though, right? So maybe this is describing too much detail, and that's what Ms. Latimer is saying. So I wanted to address that. Secondly, we are very hopeful that you are creating place types that will inform the rewrite to the UDC and how we modify existing zoning districts or add a new zoning district. So this is a land use category that is slightly different than the existing land use category. So we may very well come up with a new
single-family zoning district that is a minimum of 2 acres. That's what we're doing here, right? So
But
I
I
do
don't
want to
want
say
to
that.
force them into, I do not like the idea of forcing them into a deep setback. I don't like the intent of rural agricultural to say, you have to have a let's zoning get together and let's say, okay, when you have ag zoning, you have to have a deep setback. I don't particularly like that, because if you have 2 acres and you pull the house up to the front of the road and then the acre and a half is to the back, then the community has a nice community feel, but it also has the use of the acreage for maybe you're a hobby horse person, or you're a cart puller, or you have sheeps or something.
So I want to defer to you. When I say you, it's the greater you, just not Miss Latimer. If you want to strike things here and be more general, help us.
Yeah, it needs to be
Represent you,
a way more
okay?
general. So
Then the last thing, Ms. Latimer, if you will, when someone's doing a building permit, they don't go back to this. At this point, they're on a property that is zoned a certain way, and the comp plan's no longer in the process. A building permit is based upon your current zoning, and it has to meet the setbacks. It has to meet impervious cover. It has to meet minimum lot size and other factors. So I just want to say, this informs your UDC. By the time you get to a building permit, the comp plan's out of the picture. Just wanted to answer that clearly.
Of course, that was the whole point. Like,
Okay.
what's the audience?
So-
It seems to me this is going to be more of a general sort of guiding
Yeah.
statement for you to
Yep.
go
So
to
remember,
implement further in the UDC.
tonight, our aim is for you to own the place types. For you to think that the place types that you see on this sheet, which we're going to review all of them, create areas within the city as it grows or as we stabilize existing residential neighborhoods. Many of our existing residential neighborhoods from Bentwood Ranch to Deer Creek would fit right in here. That you think that these categories describe the place you want to call home. That's it. That's our goal, is that you believe that these are the place types that create the place that you call Cibolo.
And you use the perfect word over there. These are the guiding principles. Now, I'd have to kind of differ with you, Mr. Reed, when you say that they ain't going to use this in the zoning. Because you know what? This is the guiding principle for these zonings. And if I'm going to come back as a citizen, I'm going to come back to this guiding principle. If I've got to fight myself
Yes.
against the Board of Zoning, I'm going to come back to this written guiding principle as to say, how did you establish that against me?
You and I are on the same page. What I said is it is not relevant in the permit process. This informs your zoning district, 100%.
So
This
the
informs
character
your-
and the intent needs to go back to be very benign. The land use considerations need to be more than single-family detached homes, agricultural parks, and open spaces, because under the primary uses here, it talks about accessory dwelling units, detached residential modular homes. Appropriate secondary uses include greenhouses, kennels, which, you know, we have some restrictions on that, adult community, group homes, campgrounds, detention facilities, and cemeteries, ag only, and large-scale daycare services and nursery schools. So when we look at the appropriate land use type in this environment, I think that's too restrictive for the character. And so I would strike out everything, including the single-family housing.
Should we start with the character intent first line?
Are we good with the first line?
We'll start with the
Rural residential is single-family house, so we're just talking about rural residential, not the agricultural, but rural residential is single-family housing on large lots located on the outskirts of the community or enclaves within the city.
I don't like that statement at all, because it may not be single-family house, yeah. It's bad, that's bad language. So I would say the rural residential is intended for areas within the city which will maintain a rural character.
But who determines character?
So we're going to go into land use considerations, and we're going to determine that in land use considerations, but the intent is for it to feel rural. And so what might feel rural to you would not probably feel rural to me. correct? Or my land certainly does not feel rural to somebody that's living, out in the middle. And so, but keeping the character and intent is to keep that rural feel. And so you're going to kind of have things that have the house on 60-foot lots.
Oh, go ahead.
I understand that. I understand it wholly. But if it says, and help me because I need clarification, if something says single-family housing, does that mean I can't put a mother-in-law suite on it? Because I know where I live in Deer Creek, we got mother-in-law suites all
Yeah, but
over
if
there.
you have that in the language of the character and intent of rural agricultural residential, they will use it against you. So if you're in the rural agricultural, it should just say to keep the feel of rural residential, not indicating single-family housing.
You can't use rural residential as a definition of rural residential.
Right, there we go.
So you can say that it's residential that is intended to maintain a rural character.
Instead of single family, can we just put housing, like take out single family? Rural residential is housing on large lots located on outskirts, community, on enclaves within a city. That takes out the single family issue.
Some of it's barns, some of it's
Well,
porta huts. Yes.
Well, I mean,
It's a rural character, and so the intent is to have residential, right? This isn't gonna be a commercial unless, like I have bees, right? So my bees, I sell my honey. So that is commercial, but it's ag. So the intent is to keep it rural. And but you could have bees at your house, but you couldn't have bees that you could have an agribusiness for bees at your house. Well, you could, but your neighbors would be really upset with you. I'm not sure.
I guess before we digress, let's look at, okay, so single family, we're saying that we don't like. I mean, I guess, can you, you're not gonna do a duplex.
housing,
you're gonna
yeah.
put a
I think you
triplex.
should call it residential. The rural residential.
is
So strike out
residential
single family?
housing.
So we can
Well,
start with
what
the,
would be the alternative to single family? I mean, you're gonna have like, oh, you can't have multifamily. I'm just saying.
Well,
We got
see,
multifamily living
if-
next to me.
If you ever go to, like, just go up 281, for instance. If you drive up 281 long enough, you're gonna come across some big old farms with like 5 or 6 houses with the ranch hands living on it, right? Well, I mean, not even that. Up there, there's real nice property. But, you have multiple housings on there, but it's such on a large lot of land that you have ranch hands. I don't know. It's just,
So why don't, what if we,
Maybe single family housing. I mean, again,
what if we describe all of the uses that support rural, a rural character? So you're talking residential, livestock, farming, you provide that list. So it would start with residential, farming, agricultural uses that support a rural character.
located on a,
I guess everything other than urban, right? So that's what it is everything.
yeah.
This way, you're not so specific that you get into the specific types of residential.
Yeah.
You just say residential that supports a rural character.
Say it again, please.
Okay, so residential, farming, agriculture, so you list all the uses, the different types of uses that support a rural character.
So can you have a 2-acre lot or 3-acre lot and just have your house on it and not farm and not ag it?
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
but you're saying in the definition that
Yep.
it has to be agged or farmed.
No, so that could be another use of open land. We could say open land,
There's a lot of may.
undeveloped land.
May doesn't mean you have to do anything. It may be this, it may be that.
The restriction, I don't like the restrictions part on that thing either, though.
So one of the things that we're not doing in this character and intent and land use considerations, we're not talking about compatible zoning districts in this. So, so are we going to come back on that and do compatible zoning districts?
Zoning districts are with the UDC. We're not trying to be so specific as to define zoning districts. You're trying to create.
So we're getting away from that.
We're trying to
As
give
a
them
master
guiding.
plan advisory committee, you would be putting your feet into the UDC, which is, as I've said.
Okay,
on
in the
multiple-
master plan,
Yes,
right here,
yes.
it says compatible zoning districts. So if we have in this master plan, which is the place type, intent, character and intent statement, an appropriate land use types, compatible zoning districts, and then moving forward. So are we not in this master plan, in this one that we're creating now?
Thank you
going-
for clarifying. There are two levels that you are trying to work through for the land use element of the comprehensive plan. One is general descriptions that when you look at the flume, you can read these general descriptions, place types, let me say place types, and understand, well, that's what that color on the map is intended to create. Then you can read a whole chapter and you delve deeper into it. And I'll say this, how many here believe that our zoning districts as written in the UDC today are working well to describe a place that we call Cibolo? Raise your hand. Okay. So what I want you to imagine is as we write the whole chapter to further explain the place type, we'll have to use our existing zoning district to say, existing zoning districts that are compatible are the following. We may have to say that there's not an existing zoning district that aptly describes this. And that's going to help in the UDC rewrite. So right now, you're trying to create an executive summary of this place type. We'll get into the chapter, and we'll use much of the existing language in the existing comp plan if it makes sense, based upon your place type that you have here.
Why would you go with that? Do you not like that?
So,
Well, yeah, I prefer the intent and character language in the existing
Okay.
rural residential intent and character statement, which reads, again, the rural residential future land use categories intended for areas within the
Aaron,
city.
why don't you write that on the upper left?
It's a lot.
Carol, or
Poor guy.
Ms. Latimer, why don't you read that first sentence again? And Aaron's going to write it in smaller print so he can fit that entire sentence up there.
go
Start further
slow.
to your left there, Aaron. Okay.
Yeah,
The rural residential, it's it's 42. I'm sorry, Aaron. Get your writer's crick right there.
I was thinking the entire time, it's like, why don't we just keep, I mean, if it, okay, so, you know, my grandma taught me a lot, and she always taught me, hey, keep it simple, stupid. So, I mean,
Just say refer back to the section.
yeah.
Si, senor. I like that. That would be my suggestion. Does anybody else need to hear it?
Does anybody want to look it over?
I mean, other than removing that residential uses and the restriction section.
The whole thing really is deep setbacks,
I
a
mean,
high
other than
distance.
the higher-
There's like crazy stuff in there for the intent and character to me. It
no.
needs to be more generic.
The one thing I do like, though, I think, is the roads in these areas may have minimal improvements. I don't know if I like that either.
Yeah,
Well,
I
then
don't
why
like, I
can't
don't
you
like
use
any of
the-
that.
No,
And it's no offense, just like I'm not saying it to be
these road
like,
areas have,
You're saying it's just too UDC language in here? Or it's supposed
this is too like zony language to me. Yeah, I want it to be more intent language, more, yes, exactly, yes, I want it to be more, this is what we're, and then we can figure out the zonings that fit in it, because I'd like rural residential or agricultural residential to be the conservation districts. So I have high aspirations, not only for us hobby farmers, but for people that live close together, very close together, but in conservation, which is super important to me because I think city people should also have a little piece of country. That's right. Well, I'm pretty sure.
I like this. I like this sentence as it is, though, as I just did it there.
Roads
I love my
in these
neighbor that
areas
has
are
chickens
not.
with fresh chicks.
To not accommodate higher levels. That's different. That's a different goal. That's a different.
Like planning and zoning type language? Are they more generic? We're gonna be here till 9:30.
No, we got a lot of good stuff to do tonight still.
Well, I mean, we did sign up.
Yes, thank you for coming out in the cold to spend the evening with us.
I mean, I think all the rest of them. I'm sorry, Kels. I think the rest of them are really going to come down to what our primary uses and our secondary uses are going to really come down to. I think this one is kind of a little out of there because we asked a lot of changes for this one in the beginning.
Is that
but
out of-
most of the rest of the ones are just going to come down mainly to primary and secondary use, I believe. So it's not going to be as difficult as this one.
It's not going to be as difficult because the bulk of this committee is more concerned about rural and that's why it's not as important, or you guys might not think it is as important, because the bulk of this committee, this affects you guys differently than it affects me. So
Yeah.
I get it. And so something that might be a little more important to me, you're not gonna, it's not that I don't care. Please
No,
don't.
no, that,
Okay, but I might have some say
Yeah.
about some other stuff that you won't understand, because y'all
You're
are country
right.
folk.
well, and I remember when we did this back in November 30th. This was kind of the ones I wanted to really put my feet in on this one. So yeah, that's why this one's a little bit difficult.
And also because I would like to see us consider rural residential more than just hobby farming. Like, I would love to see, because one of Cibolo's mission statements or vision statements is to preserve its rural history, and we can preserve its rural history and still have a good tax base.
But will this definition fix your problem?
Yes.
The problem that you're proposing?
Yes, I believe it will, and I believe it'll actually expand this category's place type.
It's already 2016, it's already very generic, so why are we having a problem now?
What I'm saying is 2016 fixes it. And in fact, I think it fixes it in a way that expands it into what we would like to see it to be.
Beginning of this, you said 2016 was like really.
There's a couple things on the 2016 I really wanted to change, like the lot size.
Yes.
I
was the
wanted
zoning
from 5 to 2.
classifications.
And there's a couple different things on there, but we wanted to change. I mean, what do you think about that?
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Hicks wants to add something about the roads,
Yeah.
a road statement.
Yeah, I want to kind of put in there, like, roads in these areas, I don't like to have minimal improvements, because that's just, I mean, if you say minimal improvements, you'll look at all the roads in Cibolo right now, they're terrible. But the roads in these areas are not to accommodate higher levels of traffic found in other places. So, roads in these areas are not to accommodate higher levels of traffic found in other place types. Yeah. So instead of, I want to get rid of that minimal improvement, because, I mean, Tully
Absolutely.
Road. I mean, yeah. Okay.
Well, and also too, in rural residential districts, in some of them, and I could see that we wouldn't sidewalk. We wouldn't even have sidewalks. And in some of them, we would.
Yeah.
And so it's a more of a broad category. So I wouldn't even bring up the roads.
No?
I wouldn't.
Can I ask a question? For those of y'all that live like on Tolly Road and these country roads, do y'all have a lot of bicyclers?
Yes.
Because it
Saturdays and Sundays.
it seems like they all meet up here in Old Town and then they head out. So that is a concern with
Not
these
during the
bad
week, though.
roads.
During
Not during the
high
week?
traffic times.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Not if you're smart, you don't go down there in a bicycle in high traffic times.
Yeah, you couldn't really ride a bicycle down Tolly Road night right now.
Were there any other suggestions, or did you want to morph any of this?
I think now to get the high traditional residential, this place type preserved rural character by requiring
What if we just go back to the comp plan from 2016?
Yeah, I mean,
Which erases everything under character and intent?
yeah.
That's what
Well,
it's doing?
what happened to my book?
Somebody has your book, no?
No, right here.
All right, so I said I would like to see roads in these areas have minimal delete have minimal improvement as they are to or not to accommodate, as they are not to take intended out. Everybody okay with that? I mean, yeah, not to accommodate. Yeah, just take out the intended right there and the R. Are, okay, areas are not to accommodate higher.
saying none of them can accommodate, I thought this was, they're not intended to accommodate. They're not meant to accommodate higher level.
Yeah,
Okay, so
But-
if you say not to accommodate higher levels of traffic, that means it does not, it will not. It may be a little better to say they're not meant to or not intended to. I get a little better.
Let me just say this, roads in these areas may not accommodate higher levels.
That means they're not allowed to.
No, it doesn't.
Hang on one second, guys. Hang on one second. If we did cluster development in agriculture, which is what the intent was, correct, Mr. Reed?
Or in your estate residential. So agriculture may be, again, very low density. And then estate residential is where your cluster development alternative would be found.
Okay. I just wouldn't mess with the roads because you look at where she had mentioned, where Miss Lee had mentioned one of the pockets of agriculture off of a very major road. So I just think you just go back, you could resort back to the 2016 comp plan intent and character statement, and you'd be light years better. I think that the intent and character is captured there.
Perfect, yes.
Just for time management, what I'd recommend is why don't we do a straw vote of everyone and see if we're good with that? So the intent here would be to strike what was drafted. Again, staff trying to have a starting point, to strike it in its entirety and go with the 2016 comp plan intent statement, which has been written up on that board. If y'all are good with that, again, we want you to own this. This is not for staff to own.
I'm good. 2016 sounds good to me.
Malcolm, do you want to see the statement?
I'm good.
I'm good too. You good? Yeah. Is anybody opposed to the 2016 intent and character statement?
And then, we're striking that entire paragraph.
Because it says large estate lots with large lot minimums and greater setbacks.
Yeah, because what you guys were concerned, well, you said. Or you can take 2016 for the sake of, I'm okay with that too. I just want to point that out, that it's very similar.
Yeah, I agree with you. We could take out, and greater setbacks, yeah,
I would take it out.
yeah.
Just say,
All right.
Yeah, large lot, large lot
That
minimums.
sentence would read, these areas are comprised of natural, undeveloped areas, agriculture, and large estate lots with large lot minimums.
Period. Yes, perfect. Does everybody concur? Anybody against redacting that?
Sounds good to me.
The estate is kind of confusing if we have estate residential.
Well, we can leave it in there because,
And then, Ms. Latimer, we're striking the whole paragraph as written under character and intent, replacing it with what y'all just said you're good with.
is everybody okay?
I think it implements too much on the UDC and planning and zoning, and it's supposed to be more of a generic statement, I think, is the consent of this.
Sorry about that, guys. I probably wrote
Which I'm
that
okay
for
with
like an
that.
hour and just came in here and just.
But again, that goes back to my original question. what is the audience, what is
What's
the
old is
implication
new
of these
again.
statements, and where is it gonna ultimately trickle downstream to, okay? That was my only thing, so.
It was a good only thing.
We're good, let's stop.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
So we can go ahead
We,
and our consultants
we're done?
and
No.
keep the 2016.
No.
No, I'm just messing with you guys.
No, because we did modify it, so.
All right, character and intent. Woohoo, there we go. Land use considerations, so talking about the primary land uses, the single-family detached home, agricultural, and then parks and open spaces would be the primary uses in it. Secondary land uses proposed are civic and institutional uses, capturing that agricultural businesses that might be in there, and then, as we mentioned, some of that small-scale retail. And then the indicators and assumptions that these lots, again, because we're talking about the larger lots, would be greater than 2 acres.
So I would like to add in, if we're going to accessory dwelling units and appropriate secondary uses like greenhouse.
Greenhouse is agriculture.
Miss Latimer's talking about secondary land uses, so if you want to clarify that?
We do
So,
A primary use would be for residential, the home, anything else is accessory, so it would be a secondary land use.
so accessory buildings. Yeah, accessory dwelling units. It could be an ADU, but it could be accessory buildings as well. It's another, it's a chicken tractor, a hut, a porta hut. Yeah, pole barn.
And Ms. Latimer, if you say accessory dwelling units, then that's going to encourage a
So-
zoning district?
I don't
where-
want accessory dwelling units, I mean accessory buildings.
Is that a barn? Is a barn an accessory?
Yes.
Isn't a barn an agricultural term?
Well, I think that it depends. So how would you classify a pole barn or a tractor hut or how would you-
Accessory structures.
accessory structures? I think you need to put it in there
I'm just asking, help me, if we're talking about.
because it's a clarifying statement.
But why do we need to clarify what, something that is agricultural?
Because it's a secondary land use. So let's say because people don't understand that you might need a hut, you might need a pole barn, you might need the people reading this, the folks reading this to try to determine, is this a good fit for this, is this zoning district fit within this category that we've produced?
As we go through this too, though, I just want to make sure we're thinking that these are uses, not structures. And so I don't know that saying an accessory structure is capturing that that's a use.
Okay.
So we might, if that's the intent, we might need to see if there's some tweaking that needs to be done.
I think
Or change.
agriculture, everything that you said,
Falls under the
Falls under
agriculture.
agriculture.
Okay.
anything you said, chicken coops, I mean, chicken's agriculture.
So
Okay.
also, as you're reading the 2016 plan, you notice that there's a lot more writing there. I see our consultants are capturing comments and your intent. As we write this page or two for this place type, we will include residential uses or agricultural properties in this category will often have chicken coops, barns, so forth. It'll be expressed there versus these are the land uses, primary land uses, not the
Apiaries.
accessory structures.
Apiaries.
Putting retail versus commercial inside of an agricultural, place type, right? That'd be my only concern. Everything else is fine.
Farm fresh eggs?
Well, I guess define small scale retail. Is that a truck on the side of the road selling produce out the back or?
Feed store?
Or does that mean I got a storefront, brick and mortar, and I'm putting that, I'm just saying, you're putting retail and agricultural place type, and that would be my only concern.
So that's a great concern. So
Agricultural
let me
business,
ask
yeah.
you, if you wanted to buy Rio Vista honey and Rio Vista chicken eggs, would you come to my house? Is that retail? I don't think so.
Is it
So I
ag-
think
agricultural
he's
business?
right. I
Yeah.
think he's kind of right.
Retail.
I agree.
That's agricultural business.
And I agree with you. So I think that
Yeah.
small scale retail is
I would
it's,
strike that out.
Is the committee okay with striking
Yeah,
out
yeah,
retail?
yeah, yeah.
And agricultural
okay.
business, right, if I had to go to the Webster Dictionary and say business and agriculture, if you're gonna sell eggs out of the back of your truck in front of your property, so be it.
okay.
I'll
Yeah.
come to your house
I
and buy
like
it, as long as I get.
I like it.
discount.
I'm,
Is there the only other, because in the old, Marcus, in the old place, it said that you could have like kennels or,
It says
Yeah.
adult community group homes, campgrounds, detention facilities, and cemeteries, large-scale assembly, daycare services, and nursery schools. So it's more like secondary services.
Some of that might fall under that civic and
I
institutional
agree.
category.
I kind of agree with your,
It's more of a service than a retail.
I like it. Good catch.
Do we want that?
I mean, you ain't never take.
You listed, I don't know if I would agree with that.
I mean, you ain't never take your kid down to like the south side and put him on the back of a horse and let him ride around on the horse for a little bit.
I went to Fort Sam Houston and did that. I went to something like down south, I don't know.
No, but you can have a daycare center in your home.
A lot of those might have cemeteries already on
It's
those
HOA.
lands. Just saying.
I mean,
No,
that's not.
but
But this ain't HOA.
There's no HOA out here.
But to your point, it's a service.
Any other comments on this one?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think we need to remove the estate word out of there.
So if we were to remove estate, that would read, these areas are comprised of natural, undeveloped areas, agricultural, and large lots with large lot minimums.
Correct. And the reason I say that is because
I'm okay with
Could help
that.
clarify it. All right.
Yep.
It's going to read, and
Yes.
large
That
lots.
sounds good. All right. It says moving forward here.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. I don't want to do it too fast, but 3, 2, 1. We'll give it to you for homework after everyone else leaves.
Hey, hey, that chicken, it definitely has that lemon taste in it. It's real good. That lemon chicken. Do we? I got no problem with that.
I'm gonna make the executive decision to cater every.
Hey, I'll vote for that one. It's a little close.
I'll place the order.
So let's just go back.
All right, moving on to estate residential. So character and intent, the way this one currently reads is that it's predominantly single-family housing on large lots located throughout the community. Residential uses are oriented with the front of the home facing the street and typically in a subdivision layout with access to some utilities and do not include farm and livestock uses. Cluster development, which involves the conservation of shared open space, natural areas, and scenic views in exchange for smaller lot sizes, may be an alternative approach in certain circumstances. Land use considerations, talking about primary land uses. Would you expect to see single-family detached homes, cluster development, parks and open space? Secondary land uses are proposed to be civic and institutional. Some of that small-scale retail to serve the neighborhood, and then agricultural. And then indicators and assumptions, looking at a lot size from a half an acre to 2 acres. Some of these examples would be single detached homes. You might think of Persimmon Drive over by Green Valley Road, and then some cluster development. I think Mr. Spencer went to go with IT. We do have an example. Some of you are familiar with this, some might not be, but Spring Mesa in Arvada, Colorado. And so he's going to be pulling that up, and in the meantime, we can do some surgery on the rest of it. Yes, ma'am. So,
Agriculture in that second land use, because up top it says it does not include farm and livestock uses.
that's fair. Good. Okay. Got it. So the reason why it says predominantly is because you would have secondary uses that could have a school that could be in there, right? You could have maybe your next an on the grind or something that might be in that area. Yes.
Maybe, so primarily, or why would you even have to have
Exactly, we just went through agriculture.
Small scale retail, I mean, is that good? I mean,
because of the secondary?
I don't see many issues with this.
I would just want to understand what cluster development. Put that in there as a.
Isn't there one right off of Santa Clara? Isn't there one off of Santa Clara? In Marion?
Cluster development is, it, it's clustered, right? A cluster development is also called a conservation district, predominantly called a conservation district.
Okay, but that's not.
If I take 5 acres of land and build on it with that, the housing and the road, and I put 5 or 10 acres, depending on what the relationship is. Oh. Okay. So if you take 5 acres of land and develop it with roads and the houses and your, whatever you're doing, then you take 5 or whatever is established by ordinance, if it's matching it, doubling it, whatever it is, 5 or 10 acres. If you have a 15-acre development, 5 acres of that gets developed, the other 10 acres stays as a natural area, conservation area, types of open space park area. So you cluster the housing into a little bit like they're talking about smaller lots, or I should say the lots you have in Cibolo right now are smaller lots, but you take that and you put them into a clustered development and you make the area around it natural, either matching the same amount of size that is now impervious is matched by open space, or larger by a percentage.
Yes, ma'am. And we are pulling up some examples that we can go through with you, sir.
My understanding is Bernie has this cluster development, but they have cows all around on the acreage, and the development has a tax write-off because of the agricultural. So that would be a reason why I would put agricultural as an option for developers, because then those homeowners in the cluster have that ag exemption, and they get the look of the rural country without the maintenance.
There's several developments in,
Does not include farm and livestock.
there's some places in Manor and some places outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area that have cluster development, and then they have like massive gardens where they grow like their food for that community.
Perfect. So we can definitely come back to this. This may be an instance of maybe where this is where it says may or may not include livestock or something, to have that option where we took it out before. However, I do want to turn it over to Aaron or maybe Mr. Reed. I know this is a project that you were a part of, but wanting to explain what a cluster development could look like in real life and where it's been very successful.
Yeah, right now I have, I was about to say a different name, but Spring Mesa. This is in Arvada, Colorado. Am I saying that right, Mr. Reed? This was a project that Mr. Reed had worked on whenever he was a planner, before he was greatly promoted to city manager. But anyways, This is kind of what it would look like. So you have large swaths of land that are being preserved, and then you have your cluster residential. Let me zoom in here. And just kind of giving you like an indicator, you can see there's a Quaker Acres, that's more so like estate residential, but everything north from that is within that Spring Mesa subdivision. So they have that conservation development because they're really trying to preserve that land. And it backs into some trails, and I believe a park as well, right, Mr. Reed? Open space park. So yeah, you can kind of incorporate different recreational activities with something like this, along with that residential component. And I do believe Miss Latimer, she had mentioned there's also something similar like in the New Braunfels area, but we just wanted to pull this up so that you could have this as a point of reference.
Thank you.
That statement there.
So one of the questions that we have for the group right now has to do with agricultural, because yes, there's a little bit of a disconnect maybe between the uses and then the content of the definition or the character that's in there. And so right now, it currently says that these do not include farm and livestock uses. There was some discussion about maybe taking part of that sentence we had under agricultural residential, where it says maybe changing that they may or may not include farm and livestock uses. So is there a feedback from the committee on adjusting that to allow?
There's not. Even the properties down south from here, there's not the type of areas to be developed like.
Put his mic on, please.
I'm sorry. In my opinion, there's not the type of area to develop like left in the city limits or anywhere between the city limits, because we're city limit to city limit. That's to develop like what you're speaking of. I would love to see it happen. But I think if you leave the farming aspect of it to where people can go out there and do them big area of gardening or big area of growing plants, but you take away the livestock uses, because that's the big thing is livestock feces, livestock attract flies and, rodents and pests, things like that, a lot more than just the farm uses.
I kind of agree with the taking out the livestock uses.
Leave the farming, but take out the livestock.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and the reason lay out with access to some utilities and include farm and maybe limited livestock use, and the reason I'm saying that is, what if you're 4-H?
Explain.
If you're 4-H or FFA, and you're living in a state residential, and your dad or your,
Yeah, that's just how it is.
and they don't want to be, what if they're 4-H? So may include farm and limited livestock uses.
I don't think your neighbors are gonna.
I understand what you're saying there, but if we just remove livestock uses and just put farm, may or may not include farm uses.
So is that going to keep people from having chickens? Is that going to keep people from having apiaries? Is that going to keep people?
Not on
So
the estate residential.
Yeah.
This is estate, we went through that in the.
if they're half to 2-acre lots, they could chicken and they could ape. And chickens really keep down the nasty bugs. So, are we, what is the intent? Are we trying to say, if you're in a state residential, no bok bok, no buzz buzz for you? Or are we saying this may be a good?
But even then, chickens, you cannot restrict chicken usage even in an HOA. It cannot be restricted U.S. state law. Chickens.
Oh, so my neighbors.
So then so then we shouldn't say and not include farm and livestock. Then we should just say and may include farm and livestock uses. Because if you can't take away somebody's right to own a chicken,
Is chickens considered under livestock though?
yeah,
Okay, okay.
because they can come on your land and teat them.
Okay, so this is why I suggest.
I like that.
Is the group good? Head nods?
Cool, sounds
Thumbs
good to
up?
me.
Okay.
Next.
And may include farm and livestock uses.
Everybody okay with that?
Perfect, thank
Okay.
you. So
Yes.
with that then, we did strike agricultural as a secondary land use previously. Is there a need to put that back in, or just let the fact that this is saying may include farm and livestock uses?
Unstrike out.
Unstrike, yep.
And
The reason I do it is because it's not in the primary or the land uses. I don't know how they would go about, and y'all would probably well describe this best, like conditional uses depending on. They would have to get, I'm sorry, they would have to do conditional uses depending on the particular development versus it already being established that they can have agricultural. That's why we put may include farm and livestock uses, but now the approval becomes, and if I'm right or I'm wrong, please correct me. Y'all are the ones that are the experts on this. So wouldn't they have to get approval through a conditional use for each development to have now livestock, if it says may include farm and livestock?
He's talking about. That would be under a zoning classification then? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So if we restrict the zoning classifications, then you would in effect restrict it? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, wouldn't it then come down to per individual? If we put it in there that secondary land uses does allow agricultural versus, we have up here may include farm and livestock uses up in the wording of the character and intent, but we don't give it a primary or a secondary listing of agricultural. You leave it out, you have the character and intent up there. Now it comes down to the developer to approach the planning and zoning to come in and say, here, I want to do
Agreed.
this, and I want to get this conditional use or this type of thing for this particular, am I right or wrong?
I like it.
I think you're
like
saying it
where
well.
you're going with it.
So-
So we'll
I'm
leave it
okay
as
with
is.
the leaving it stricken.
Okay?
Is everybody okay with leaving
Looks
it
good.
stricken?
Yeah, that's what I said 30 minutes ago.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. I'm glad we all could agree with you.
Okay. One, we good? Yeah.
No, I think Kelsey got it.
It's from the planning budget?
Oh.
So should I give a shout out to Chipotle?
Okay. All right, community residential. Character and intent, predominantly single-family housing developments that are located throughout the community. Homes are in subdivisions with all utilities, residential streets, sidewalks, and parks and/or connections to neighborhood parks. May have an elementary or middle school in the neighborhood. Convenience commercial businesses may be found around the perimeter with appropriate transitions to support the neighborhood. Homes are typically buffered from non-residential developments via transitional uses or landscaping. Under primary land use, single-family detached homes. Secondary land uses would be civic and institutional, small-scale retail, and parks and open space. For the indicators and assumptions, looking at lot sizes that are from 9,000 square feet to a half acre, or about 21,780 square feet. And then just some example locations where you might see this already would be like Bentwood Ranch or in Cibolo Valley Ranch, just to name a few. But this is probably the most common character of current residential in Cibolo right now.
Just a quick question, we got rid of, well, make sure we don't open up that can of worms.
SF4 is 9,200 square feet. We were just using 9,000 as a round
Is that
number.
fair? Okay, just wanted to make sure, I didn't know, okay, so, that's all I got, that's the only question. It is mine, Turning Stone.
Okay, and are there any granny flags or anything in the? I don't know where they granny flags.
So those would,
Mother-in-law.
mother-in-law suite, another structure that's on there.
So that would. Not my house. I know, but you're
Deer
aware
Creek is
of
older.
those having.
Does that,
type of neighborhood?
does that, I mean, does a mother-in-law suite come under civic and institutional? I don't know, what does that mean?
So that's kind of another reason why this was suggested to maybe be stricken from this, in that it's similar to Ms. Latimer's point earlier of, like a barn isn't a use, it's a structure type. And so that would be probably more appropriate discussed maybe in the textual portion of it, or when we do get to zoning. It's an ADU itself is not a use, if that may be of some help in that discussion.
And neighborhood parks includes HOA parks.
Sometimes the city can own them too, though.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think that's really. I like it.
1, 2, 3, go. Oh.
We need to vote.
I mean,
Is everybody good with the way that is right now?
amen.
Okay, any,
Y'all that live in this are good with it, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Or I don't know. Where do I live?
everybody okay?
Not even a mark on that one. Oh, here we go.
I know you not.
Give her the mic.
I just have a question. Somebody, I really do need somebody to explain to me what a granny flat is. I really do, I need to understand that. I think I know, because I think I know where one is, but I just want to know, in the community residential, what's the granny flat?
Have you ever had like a studio apartment? Think of a studio apartment, but by itself in the middle of the backyard or something like that, like just separated.
Mother-in-law suite is basically what they use.
Yeah.
But does that mean it could be father-in-law,
casita.
brother?
Or you know what? If you
Could
wanted to
be an
hire a
Airbnb.
granny and her live on the property, she can live in the back. I don't know. Like, I used to live in one way back in the day. It was just a bedroom, a toilet.
So
and
what
a
we're saying
kitchen.
is that you can't have a suite, a detached suite outside of your,
No, what we're saying is a granny flat is a structure and not a use. And so therefore, it's not appropriate to put granny flat under land use.
Yeah.
It will be in the
You
UDC,
can put it further down the road.
Ms. Walker, Dr. Walker, in the UDC, it'll be under the uses chart.
Yes, but we will make sure we
Yes.
capture that as we're making.
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. And I do apologize with all the excitement over here. I forgot to mention here. So we wanted to make sure in general these dark dots are reflecting primary uses. These lighter dots are the secondary uses. So if I could have Aaron, we did discuss in the rural agricultural residential that we removed retail from it. So I'm just letting you all know that we're updating this to reflect that.
Yeah.
And then our estate residential, of course, we talked about single-family detached as the primary use. And then these other items, retail and community, civic, institutional, agricultural, we ended up taking out.
Yep.
So I'm just want you to, as my witnesses that we're removing it right now,
Yes.
to make it consistent with what you had, parks and open space. Right now, catching up to where we are, community residential, single-family detached is the primary use. It could allow for some additional housing types as a secondary use is what we did have. However, since ADUs and granny flats have been removed, that one we're gonna look at a little bit more on what's appropriate for that and bring that back for your consideration. Retail and commercial secondary use, civic and institutional secondary use, and parks and open space secondary use. Have we captured that correctly?
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. All right, now. Next. See, we're getting faster with every one. You guys are on it.
Honestly, I don't think that in community residential, you're going to have missing middle housing. Except in places like Steel Crossing, your developers are solving that problem for you. So we don't really need to address it because the developers are building whole sections of their housing that are rental properties.
Yeah. They can't
Whole
sell
In
section of
Steel Creek.
Crossing is rental.
Yeah, they can't
Built
sell
by
them.
DR Horton.
Yeah.
You can rent a house for $2,300 or $2,800.
So compact residential. This is our last residential type. Character and intent. And thank you for that comment, Ms. Latimer. We will address that accordingly in there. Thank you. Provides a variety of housing types, including single lot, single family detached, patio homes, townhomes, and duplexes, and a compact network of complete walkable streets that are easy to navigate by car, bicycle, or foot. This place type also supports multifamily. Homes are in subdivisions with all utilities, residential streets, sidewalks, and parks and/or connections to neighborhood parks. Neighborhoods may be adjacent to neighborhood-oriented businesses. Key intersections, such as FM 78 and FM 1103, are areas within walking distance of local commercial are the most appropriate locations for this place type. Primary land uses would be single-family detached homes, single-family attached homes, patio homes, townhomes, multifamily complex. Secondary land uses would be neighborhood-oriented businesses, so kind of another name for those smaller scale retail. Civic and institutional, small-scale office, parks and open space. The indicator and assumptions for this would that these would be lot sizes or densities less than 9,000 square feet. Giving some example locations, you might think of duplexes like at Sydney Cove off of 1103 and Weil Road, and then multifamily complexes, just a couple grand at Cibolo off of Borgfeld Road, and then Trophy Oak just across FM 78.
So to address compact residential in the intent and purpose, one of the biggest issues in Church right now is infill development, where they're coming back in and they're trying to do multifamily or basically all kinds of multifamily, including fourplexes, duplexes, or what do they call it now? Paired housing, however they call it. It's multifamily housing. And this has created a lot of conflict within the city of Schertz's neighborhoods. And so I think one of the things that we need to talk about is that where you talk about neighborhoods may be adjacent to neighborhood-oriented businesses, but we need to say something about whether the intent of compact residential is infill. And if the intent is not to allow it to be infill, then we should probably address that in the character and intent.
What do you mean?
Infill means, Bentwood Ranch is built here, and then the other big subdivision's built here, and then another big subdivision's built there, and there's like 20 acres, and they want to come in and put an apartment complex. Every time, 100% of the time, they will come in and want to put an apartment complex in there. 100%. And so
We need to come up with something better than this infill. I don't know if that's the best.
that's the actual term for it, but if you have infilled, it's.
Infill is between pretty much residential housing.
Not just residential housing, but if you have areas that have developed and areas that have developed here and here, and then you have kind of this leftover land maybe, or something that hasn't been developed in between, that's typically what's considered infill development.
So we want multifamily to be.
The intent, we want the intent and character, so we have an opportunity to stop the insanity. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying we have an opportunity to say the intent and character of compact residential is not infill between existing communities, but rather in the appropriate higher traffic areas adjacent to major thoroughfares, major road crossings, or buffers between industrial or high, like C4 commercial, and then a residential community that would be SF1, 2, 3, or 4. And so if the intent is, we should probably just say, we don't want you to come into the middle between Bentwood Ranch and what's the one adjacent to it?
Wherever Legacy went, that was a big one.
Yes. Well, that's a part of it. But then because you have established neighborhoods, and so folks are highly invested in their communities. And then you all, 100%. If it could be 200%, it would be 200% of the time. You will see developers come in onto that piece of land and want to do, now they call it paired housing because people don't.
Try to do that next to Foxborough.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I agree. So if we can write it in here.
Housing.
Every,
golf course that all
like
these
if
people-
Schertz has an open piece of land, this is what they're now trying
So
to do.
is there a spot in
RIP
here where that maybe naturally
Yeah.
flows, if that's the intent we're trying to get to direct it?
The developer is going to 100% of the time say, well, it naturally flows here.
Naturally flows like in the
Oh.
sentence. Sorry,
I'm like,
I'm on this. You're good.
I'm like, they're going to say,
Where
is
do you
this?
put it in that paragraph?
Oh, the text of it. So down by the neighborhoods may be adjacent to neighborhood-oriented businesses and key intersections and areas within walking distance to local commercial, not, our intent is not for it to be used between existing or established single-family communities.
And that's the definition of infill.
That,
By industry standard. I don't know.
nobody in Cibolo would have to get themselves really worked up anymore, because that option would be off the table. And we,
Whatever's already zoned. There's a couple plots
correct,
already.
there's a lot of plots zoned. It was when people. So, neighborhoods may be adjacent to neighborhood-oriented businesses, key intersections, i.e. FM 70, and areas within walking distance of local commercial are the most appropriate locations for this place type, except between established neighborhoods or communities. Established residential neighborhoods and communities. And that way,
Use infill though? Should we use that term in here?
put in parentheses, infill, and they'll know.
Is that okay?
So what if somebody wants to buy one of these ranches that are up for sale, and there's a piece that's left over, and they want to put in this compact residential, because they're going to have leftover piece, it's not established.
It's between two established
No,
communities.
he's establishing it now.
Where?
So, say he's buying a pile of land,
Okay,
he's putting houses on,
okay.
there's a piece left over.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, the houses are not established. You got a piece left over, he's gonna put in the compact residential.
Then just take out the word established, except between residential neighborhoods and communities infill.
Infill development, that's what Google says.
Yeah, infill development. As infill development between, or you could say except as infill development between established communities or communities, sorry.
Not established, between residential.
So
Communities.
what Google says is refers to building within unused and underutilized lands within existing development patterns, typically but not exclusively in urban areas.
Yes. And the 100% of the time, the developers want to come in and say it's not worth developing that small piece of land with single-family homes. Residential and communities infill, that's fine. Infill development, you could say infill development. It all means the same. They know what the intent is because you put it in the intent and character, say, don't be coming around here and trying to put the paired housing up between Bentwood Ranch and this farm. Right? And so that's what you're trying to prevent.
Good, thank you.
They're not gonna like it.
With these modifications, is character and intent okay to move on?
I like it.
Perfect. Primary land uses, secondary land uses.
Yep. Sounds good. Rock, paper, scissors.
Anyone else? Okay, perfect. Then we will represent this here. Compact residential would be the missing middle, those townhomes, duplexes, multifamily. And then secondary uses under retail and commercial, some office, civic and institutional, and then pretty much all of these will have parks and open space as a secondary use because we want parks.
Everybody cool with that?
Yes.
Great.
All right, with that, we are going to transition over to our commercial uses.
Have a lot to say about neighborhood commercial. Let's take a break, a 5-minute break.
It is just about 8:30, so we have 1 hour left. Some good questions about to come up on this one, so if it's okay, we'll jump right in. So neighborhood commercial, character and intent. Neighborhood commercial development is characterized by small freestanding buildings containing one or more businesses. Neighborhood commercial primarily provides services for the surrounding neighborhoods and city. They are generally located within walking distance of surrounding residential uses and neighborhoods. Business types may include restaurants, local retail, medical offices, banks, and other retail and service uses. Primary land use considerations are neighborhood retail and office. Secondary land uses could be civic and institutional, and parks and open space. So some example locations, this is the most common commercial type in Cibolo, but some examples are Cibolo Valley Square off of FM 1103, the shops at Cibolo Bend, and then the Chipotle/City Vet complex that many of you are probably familiar with, and the Chipotle that provided our dinner for tonight.
Okay. I have a problem with how we have neighborhood commercial right now. So right now, neighborhood commercial C2, C1, but C2 specifically defaults to alcohol, outdoor entertainment, all that defaults to that. And the intent and character of a neighborhood commercial should not be noise pollution and light pollution and possible, issues with intoxication. on neighborhood streets. So, not that I have anything against that. I enjoy all to abide those establishments myself. But in Cibolo, in C2, we default to outside entertainment and we default to alcohol. And so we have something called C2R. C2R means that it's restricted from making 50% of their income from alcohol. And I think we should default in neighborhood commercial to what we call C2R now. And if they want alcohol, to be able to serve alcohol in that way, that they get a cup or a variance or whatever. Because I think that we should not be having 5 bars in neighborhood commercial. And so within a 1-block radius or a 2-block radius of each other. That's not the intent of neighborhood commercial. Not that I have anything against them. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be allowed. But right now, neighborhood commercial in C2 defaults to that. And I don't think that that's an expectation that the normal citizen of Cibolo would have, that they could have a bar with an outdoor live entertainment with speakers outside.
Just so I understand, when you're saying it defaults to alcohol sales, what is meant by that? Just because I'm not.
Talking about the UDC?
What do you mean by defaults to alcohol sales?
It says C2 that it's an allowed use. It's in the uses table.
A permitted use, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So my understanding, at some point, Schertz had it as neighborhood commercial were for family services. It was labeled family services, so that was like the dental offices or whatever. So it was more specific to family-friendly.
Do you recall, was that
businesses.
a zoning designation or a?
I do not remember.
Okay.
I just know that in front of, it was on 3009, in front of Woodland Oaks, those areas.
I think neighborhood commercial's character and intent should somehow address the business type being family-friendly or not a 51. Not a 51.
Oh, 51% alcohol.
So what category would you put the alcohol in? Community commercial?
No, it could be a neighborhood commercial as an exception, not as a by right use. I mean, you want people to have a say in that before they have outdoor speaker entertainment going on in their backyard. And if they want it, great, but don't, like, one day they wake up at 1:30 in the morning, hey, Sally! They're not gonna be happy with us.
So you're automatic.
Because it defaults right now.
Are those two different functions? So, if you have outdoor entertainment, can you separate the two between the alcohol, being more than 50% and outdoor entertainment? Like, what if somebody wanted to have a business where they don't have that much alcohol sales or whatever, but they still want to have an outdoor venue with music and loud noise? So maybe there's two things to address, right? The
I
alcohol
did clearly say alcohol and
and
music, outdoor entertainment.
Yeah.
But you're not restricting a restaurant that does not have outdoor entertainment to have alcohol.
Correct. I don't care. If they want to, they're not a 51%. They're not going to put, I mean, technically, if you walk into Olive Garden, there's a 51 and you can't carry in that. But if there's a sign, technically, like, I'm not trying to make a big deal of it or anything. I'm just saying. But that's a restaurant and its primary income is not from.
already recorded, I don't need to record. So, the city,
We're listening, sir. Go ahead.
It's okay, Kelsey, just tell them to be quiet.
No, we're good. I think you were sharing the city of San Antonio maybe had something.
So,
Okay.
Dookie, can we put a restriction in here to say, institutions that aren't 51% or more?
so, the city of San Antonio, their identifier of neighborhood commercial says provide small areas for offices, professional services, service and storefront retail uses, all designed in scale with surrounding residential development. Building size is limited to 3,000 square feet. Examples of permitted uses: animal and pet services, fitness and health club, antique store, apparel and accessory store, bookstore, bakery, florist, gift shop, professional offices, music store, convenience store, and restaurant.
I think because we're trying to get the character and intent moved up through the chain of process, I think it might be important to say not including bars 51% or greater and outdoor entertainment. I just think it's something that the character and intent should not include in neighborhood commercial without an exception, and change the uses table. We need to change the uses table. Everywhere. All along. Yep. Okay, pull out a map of the commercial along 1103. How much C2 or C3 is along there?
About
C2.
neighborhood commercial primarily provides family-oriented services for the surrounding neighborhood and city.
That's it.
It says primarily, not all.
So the proposal right now is neighborhood commercial development is maybe characterized by maybe here, the second one. So let's keep the family-oriented services for the surrounding neighborhoods and city.
They absolutely could. If it's C2 or 3, but since this is going up in the UDC, and since you guys are doing a more comprehensive plan, there needs to be a notation on neighborhood commercial about taking a serious and in-depth look at the uses table, because our uses table is an egregious affront to the average homeowner.
Are we gonna be taking these in depth another step, like in there? So, I mean, when we take it into that next step, I think that's where we get this, Kara.
Yeah, but I'm saying don't miss it, people. Don't miss it.
I don't think you're gonna let us miss it. So, you
I
never
could
do.
choke on a bologna sandwich
Especially this
tomorrow.
being your thing, I thought. So
We have it recorded. We will have it in minutes. I know they're taking a note. Thank you. Thank you. Mhm. Perfect. Were there any other in the character and intent? Okay, thank you. Neighborhood retail, office, primary land uses, secondary land uses, civic and institutional, parks and open space?
No, I don't think you should have civic and institutional in neighborhood commercial. Neighborhood commercial should be your moneymaker, right? That's your moneymaker, your EDC. Why would you put civic and institutional in there? I guess you would have to allow churches. Why in neighborhood commercial? Why?
So again, so not having specific zoning areas that are in here, but if we're calling out general sections, so you could have churches that are allowed in there. Maybe you would have a school that would pop up within it. Those would be some examples where it would be
Well,
shown in
the
that.
people that hate the school, the people that hate school would want me to advocate for removing civic and institutional, because then it wouldn't have been allowed by CUP. So But I'm not going to fight that battle if nobody here cares about it. I'm just saying that people have run me into the ground over it. So I feel obligated to speak up. But if nobody else cares,
Well, I care that maybe an ABA or a Sylvan would be in an area that's not far from people's homes. in a
Sylvan
neighborhood
and
commercial.
ABA are not civic or institutional. They're
think
retail.
That goes off of retail or office
Okay,
or something like that.
or what's wrong? Well, I'm just asking a question. What's wrong with having this school?
Clearly, I did not think anything was wrong with having legendary legacy school there. I voted for it. But there's a group of people that ran me down,
And I was one of
accused
them.
me of not looking at it, and so
did not
I'm
want legacy.
saying, well, and I'm saying that there was enough people that communicated to me, they did not like that. And in neighborhood commercial, if we ixnayed on the civic and institutional, that would have to come out of the cup. And then people they were pissed. I mean, I did what I felt was obligated under the master plan and under our UDC uses table, but they were angry. So now I'm advocating for the people that I don't particularly like how they spoke to me, but that's not my job today, is to say civic and institutional may be something that a group of people may want to have stricken from neighborhood commercial. But I don't. I personally have no beef with it, but some people did. They did.
If I may just add, I think this is a good conversation about what is the community that you want to build. So by including it, you allow schools to be included within neighborhoods where people can walk their kids to school. If you exclude them, you're going to segregate schools from neighborhoods.
Well, I didn't want to exclude them, and that's why I allowed it. But people, you know, you
Additionally,
had to go do the research on the
Ms.
TIA.
Latimer, you know well, in leadership, if you're pleasing everybody, you're not doing your job.
Well, I just wanted to bring it
You,
up.
you won't
I'm for
please
keeping it.
everybody when you make big decisions.
It's my obligation to bring it up.
thank you.
Hey,
Well, that's what it is. No, I'm specifically saying where legacy is where a school could go.
It was zone commercial.
Some other institutional might be like, or civic might also be like a fire station needing to go in the area to service like industrial or commercial, any of your police, other things like that.
I
Could
brought
also
it
be
up
something.
to let people know that I listen to them. That's it.
Yeah, but then we need a cup to do anything that's outside of
yeah.
the 500.
So, I mean, my thing is, we're not putting any.
Generally.
We're just gonna all agree with it and move on, right? Or we could just put it on my name. I'm fine with that too.
Okay.
That's fine. I brought it.
Okay.
That's all my obligation is.
Thank you.
Keeping it.
Okay, 1, 2,
2, 3,
rip
rip
the
it.
Band-Aid.
Next.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay,
Yes,
we're good.
primary
My
uses,
entire
retail
life.
and commercial with office, and then secondary use, civic, institutional, and parks. Thank you.
But I think the civic institutional parks is the catch-all. Is where, yeah, I mean, as an EDC member, you're right, I want to advocate for smart C2, right? But also for C1 or C3 or whatever the case may be. But, I mean, if we want to do institutionary, then we do.
Perfect. Regional Activity Center. So this would be developments that are larger in scale and would be designated to attract regional traffic for shopping and retail needs. These commercial centers are anchored by mid to big box retailers located along major thoroughfares such as freeways and arterial roads. National retailers and grocery stores would typically be located in this place type. Regional Activity Center can also contain smaller retailer office destinations as well, such as maybe medical offices or boutiques, but they are typically anchored by several national vendors. Business types may include restaurants, national retailers, discount stores, grocery stores, fast food, and other retail and service uses. The primary land uses are community and regional, serving retail and commercial. Secondary land uses would be civic and institutional, medical, small-scale retail, hotel, parks and open space, and office. Some example locations would be the Cibolo Crossing Shopping Center and then the Walmart and HEB area.
I think also mentioned the recommendation was to change from community commercial to regional.
Yes, so you'll notice we did change it from community commercial to regional activity center, partially because you had neighborhood commercial and then community commercial, and that sounded kind of like a synonym for it. And so because this community commercial, the intent really is to attract people from outside of Cibolo specific to the area. Regional activity center is something that's been used in some other comp plans as a place type, so that's the recommendation for this.
So, for instance, Costco, like a Costco store would be a regional activity center. So if anybody from Costco is listening to this meeting,
Come on down.
I would like you to know that I would ferociously support you coming here. Costco.
Ditto.
And bring your gas station. We have a spot right off of I-10 that's just beautiful for the Costcos. Yes, or right off of 1103, there are a couple of spaces that may be large enough to facilitate a. They said no, but
We will
I
find
love
an appropriate
Costco.
place for them if they come. Yes.
The building, when I get near a building of Costco, I find it to be a beautiful experience.
Yes.
I have a question
Yes,
under
ma'am.
that. Since it says secondary use, civic and institutional. So Round Rock has a branch with Texas State University. And I have been trying forever to give our kids something in Guadalupe County. So would this be a regional activity for kids in Seguin could come? Ours, I mean, all of these Guadalupe kids could have to attend higher education without out-of-district fees to go to San Antonio, Bexar County.
So SAC has a program currently that is in Comal County and Bexar County. And if you reside in Comal or Bexar, you pay a tax. You do pay a tax for it. And that's why they built that's why they skipped over us and built it in
But Texas
New Bern.
State has a branch in Round Rock. Don't you think they could put a branch in Cibolo?
Well, they would charge us. They charge you a tax for it.
But to your question, yes, that could be something that could fit within this. Yeah. And yes, if anyone from Texas State is listening, let us know. But any heartburn? Do we feel comfortable with this? As is? We want to see more of it? Yeah.
I would love to see more of it. And could you put Costco with a smiley face?
Perfect. Thank you. There. To this point, though, where it said community commercial, this is regional activity center. Primary use, retail and commercial. Secondary use is office, civic and institutional, parks and open space, and potential a hotel for all the people who want to go shopping there. Mixed-use centers. So mixed-use centers are master planned to offer the ability to live, work, and play in the geographically compact area with a high intensity of uses organized around nodes of activity. This place type includes a mixture of different housing options within close proximity to goods and services and may serve as an employment center and shopping destination for adjacent neighborhoods. Buildings are typically built to the sidewalk, located on internal local streets to create a pedestrian-oriented environment, and can be 1, 2, or more stories with residences or offices located above street-level storefronts. Includes a space for recreation, and gathering. The design and scale of development in a mixed-use center encourages active living through a comprehensive network of walkable, complete streets. Primary land uses would be retail, large-scale commercial, condominiums, mixed-use multifamily, offices, hotel, and entertainment venues. Secondary uses would be civic and institutional, offices, parks, and open space. And then if we need to pull it up, we did have some examples. One is in the city of South Lake Town Center. I know you did get a PDF version, and those were hyperlinked. The quarry, some of you might be more familiar with in this area, is another example.
We did a lot of work to do away with this. The Planning and Zoning Commission, the EDC, and City Council did a lot of work to do away with the PUDs, which is what this is. And so it sounds fantastic. It always sounds fantastic. But what I can show you in Cibolo's history of the PUDs that we have developed, there are two. There's Venado Crossing, and there is Red River Ranch. And they not one single promise made by the developer or executed on by the bureaucrats within this city fulfilled any of, and I even believe a portion of Buffalo Crossing was a PUD. And so what I'm telling you is that Cibolo has a nasty, dirty, unsuccessful, egregious breach of public trust every time you've tried to bring us a PUD. There is not one stick of commercial development in Venado's Crossing. There is not one stick of commercial development in Red River Ranch. And we are still fighting with Israel Fogel over where a road goes because of PUDs. So if you ask me the history with mixed-use centers or PUDs or whatever you want to call this, this is bad. This is egregiously, horrifically bad.
Is, and because I don't know, is, where's the movie theater?
Cibolo
and
Crossing?
Santico?
Where's Santico? So Cibolo Crossing is a PUD.
Okay.
Yes.
It was not a residential PUD, and they didn't end up building the residential. It never works out.
Wait, did you say it was or was not?
It was supposed to be apartment complexes, and we never got the apartment complexes. It never works out. It's like, no. Well, the last time that we had public input, it was delayed again.
Are we talking about-
Fasken Oils.
They just cleared their building plan review for the building permit, and they're cleared to start that project
They're
back
getting
up.
permits
How many
as we
years
speak,
has
yeah.
Santikos been there?
I believe 2019.
Okay, and how many years has Red River Ranch and Venado Crossing been under development?
That I'm not sure of the start date. So again, I think some of this might be the policy side behind it that definitely does need to be addressed to make sure it is done correctly.
We worked diligently, City Council, Planning and Zoning, and the EDC to do away with this. You're bringing back something that probably 8 months worth of work was done to say no. We are not going to do this, straight zone them.
I have a question. These type of builds, aren't they all accounted for in those other categories? So why do we need a mixed-use centers when there already is opportunities all along those other categories?
And that's what we determined after 8 months of studying and figuring it out. Because at land study, when they go to develop the land, at land study, it locks in the units, how they're going to build it, the phases in which they're going to build it out is all locked in at land study. There is absolutely no reason for mixed-use centers. Every time we have ever had these, they have always come back and come back and come back. The only one that has ever worked slightly is Fasken.
Is the Pearl a mixed-use center? Okay.
ma'am.
The Pearl's mixed use, the Quarry is a mixed use, and you're just saying, I really need to know, it has not up to 2024 worked in Cibolo.
We spent almost a
No, just
year.
please, because I'm trying to go someplace with this. It just has not, up to this point, worked in Cibolo.
Correct.
Okay, so, but that doesn't mean, I'm just saying, that doesn't mean it won't, because it's phenomenal in the Pearl.
Okay,
And-
so I'm telling you that a
And I
year
think-
of my
I
time.
finish? I get it, I get that, but I'm just asking you a question. Just because it hasn't worked up to this point, and you've lived here a lot longer than I have, but I love the quarry and I love the Pearl, and I know people who've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in a house and where they live. Oh,
So,
wait a minute.
Let me give
Wait
you
a-
an example. Can I give you an example?
Finish. Okay. I know people who've spent lots of money in condos at the Pearl. And so all my question is if we could get something like that, and you're just saying no, but you don't think Cibolo would ever be able to do that?
I'll give you an example, a very recent example as to why. There's a gentleman that owns the property, you know, when you're driving down 1103 and it turns, and there's a Bright Road and then Wild Road, it makes kind of like an L, and there's like a little curve at the curve. There's a piece of property right there. Everybody always puts their political signs on it. Okay, yeah, you know which piece I'm talking about? Okay, do you know how many years that gentleman who's just trying to build a store, like a convenience store, do you know how many years that gentleman has been trying to build his store? 3. Go to the corner of 1103 and FM 78 across the street. Look at what QT has gone through. Look at all of the variances that QT has gone through here. We do not have the human bandwidth or capability or expertise to be able to execute on something like the Pearl. And I don't mean that in an ugly way. I mean that in a very serious look at how we are failing the property owners within the city of Cibolo right now that are trying to open businesses right now. And we cannot manage that. Why, in what world would, if we got to the point where Cibolo was, and I know you are familiar with exactly what I'm talking about, Miss Lee, because you are over planning, and that we are years behind in getting these commercial developments developed because of our planning department. That's just, if you don't believe me, I'll give you the guy's number. He'll tell you, he'll beg you to come to the meetings and speak on his behalf. QT, they were able to get, Joel worked with them and the city staff to try to overcome the restrictions. We don't have the expertise. We have nobody in our planning department that can do it. And I would say,
Miss Latimer, I'm just going to have to speak up. I have the expertise and the experience over 25 years to manage land development.
yeah, well, get that guy's business built for him. You know, I'm here to advocate for the people.
Absolutely.
Not
But
for staff.
I'm just saying the past is ugly, and I agree with the past is ugly.
And the present, today, we're not performing.
You and I in a separate meeting can talk about that, but I will tell you this. We are performing now, and we have been performing better and better every single month in the planning
At the
department.
next meeting, I will
Yes.
call these businesses and I will ask them to show up because I'm not bad-mouthing you.
Right.
Realistically, if you cannot chew what you are asking, if you and your staff cannot chew what you are asking these citizens to bite off because it sounds delicious, I wish we could have that too. But if you're asking me to say, oh, bite it off, you're just going to choke on it. And I like you. I love Kelsey. I think she's a talented, intelligent, and fantastic human being.
Right.
But the reality is we're not there yet, and you want to put this in front of us, and I know this is a personal thing with you because you are a good planner and you didn't agree with the decision to undo the PUDs. These are the things that City Council said, do not do. Take this off. And we are sneaking it backdoor in behind our elected officials, and this is my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. We are sneaking this backdoor into the master plan community, something that council has said, take off the table. These are our elected officials. They took it very seriously. It was over 8 months of their time of elected officials coming together and saying, we can't do this. It's never worked out for our citizens. And so if we're going to do mixed-use centers, before you bring it in front of this body,
Right.
you bring it back to my electeds, because the electeds are the one that took it out of the mix in the first place. And they are the authority over me, over you, because they are elected by the people. So
Ms. Latimer, there is no backdoor way of putting this, we are not through a backdoor getting this back in front of council. You are a public-facing advisory committee which will put in front of council your recommendations. You can make a recommendation not to do a mixed-use center. That's not backdoor. You can also make a
Technically.
recommendation. You can make a recommendation to add this, and then it is this body, along with the P&Z Commission, the City Council, and the EDC that would place this place type on a map. This doesn't color the whole map. It doesn't even color 5% of the map.
did city council reject this type of development and pull it from our UDC and our ability to use it in planning and zoning?
They pulled the planned unit development zoning district
They did,
because the past was ugly.
yes.
But I think you need to make a recommendation, regardless of your position on it, to the city council, whether or not to or to not include this. So if this is a divisive issue, then take a vote and show who supports it in the appropriate areas and who doesn't support it. You, at the January 30th joint meeting with the P&Z and the city council and the EDC and you, will actually, Aaron, Kelsey, myself, and Kimley Horn will not present your vision statement. We will not present your guiding principles, and we will not present the place types. We're asking you to present those items to set the stage for working on the future land use map. There's no back door there, Ms. Latimer. It's a public, open, transparent process in which we've asked to inform you, to consult with you, and to involve you. So if you don't want to recommend the mixed-use centers, that's okay. Make that recommendation.
What has changed? What has changed between the time that city council pulled this to this very date? What has changed? Have we been able to execute on the building development permits in a more judicious manner?
Yes, ma'am. We review permits of 15, for commercial, of 15 million or less in under 15 days. If it's more than 15 million, it's 20 business days. We process single-family permits on average 4 business days. And we do next day inspections 99% of the time. Did I answer your question about building permits?
You said words, but the proof is there is a person who owns land on that corner who has not gotten his approval. We still haven't seen QT, either one of the QTs. These are things that maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I don't have all of the information, but I do see and I do talk to the folks that own that land that are struggling through those commercial inspections and those commercial issues.
Ms. Latimer, did you ever ask them to come meet with me?
Yes. In fact, I gave them, they said they had met with Kelsey's team. They knew her name, Miss Lee's name. Yeah. They knew your email, and I gave them Katie Cunningham's email because they continued to have the problem. I know that people cry wolf all the time. I understand what the public, dealing with the public is like. That's not the issue. The issue is it's one of many issues, but I just want this entire body to know that the elected officials did away with this. Yes, Dr. Walker is correct. This would be awesome. I don't think we're even close to where we could do that yet.
Okay, but let me say this. Isn't this the future of Cibolo? I'm just asking. Is this the future of Cibolo? And I understand how this has affected you. I understand that. I can feel it. That energy is strong. But what I would, my thoughts on all of this, and I'm no planner, I'm just a military person and I teach kids with special needs. That's what I do, okay? But I do believe that the future is better than what we have now and what we had yesterday. I believe that in my heart, and I believe there are enough people in place in the city of Cibolo we might not get there tomorrow. We might not get there in 2 or 3 years. But I believe in my heart we can get there, and I'm going to tell you why. When I moved into Cibolo, there were very few people in this city that looked like me. Very few. And I was not welcomed, nor were my children. But 23 years later, what's 2002 to 24? 22 years later, look at where we are.
Yes.
Look at where we are. So I am not as quick to say no about the
I'm not quick
change.
about it. It's the PIA.
Okay, one second, let me interject here. Okay, so we're talking about potential mixed-use centers, okay, having the capability to put it in the master plan. It's not a guarantee that it's going to happen.
Right.
I understand your point. I understand your point that you might have some personal anecdotes of people's issues with city administration and permits.
And
But
our elected
but
officials.
hold on. Efficiencies, but that doesn't negate the fact that Mr. Reed and his team can get us there, right? That's why we hire somebody new to come in and bring in administration. So I'm saying that shouldn't give us short in our foresight here where we can potentially do something like this in the future. Now, I know that you said the PUDs and we got rid of PUDs or we restricted PUDs or whatever the case may be, right? Nevertheless, though, we still want to have the ability, if we choose to in the future, against the flume of having something like this on I-10 would potentially work. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying there's a company that's going to buy 120 acres and do a mixed-use center and they're going to bog down planning and zoning and, in the planning department with a whole bunch of permits, right? And looking at drawings and schematics and that. However, thinking about both of what you said, got it, change is good. And I think, honestly, not saying that we can't use mixed-use centers. I think that is a tool that we should have in our toolbox in the event that somebody wants to build that, right? And the city will have the ability to address, as far as the
So the
influx of
city
work.
has the ability to do that now at land study. At land study, when they sit down, they're going to do a comprehensive master plan. They're going to come in at land study and they're going to say, this area we want zoned C4 or C2 or C whatever. This area we want to put multifamily in, we want to put paired housing in, and this area we want to do our single family residential over here. And they're going to do all of that at land study, and then they're locked in. And we get to say in the phases and how they do that components of how they develop it. This is always a end run around the people. It's our TIA for the traffic impact in Buffalo Crossing because of a PUD. Our issues with the lift station in Venado Crossing because of a PUD. Not having sufficiently deep commercial in front of Red River Ranch because of a PUD. So we can, at land study, do a master plan where everything is specifically zoned and your expertise as a planner would be utilized in the same way at that land study as they would in the mixed-use center. The mixed-use center, all it does is give loopholes to the developer and caveats to a developer and power to a developer to change things behind the reviewing body's jurisdiction. And we have.
Karen.
Yes.
So how do we, like we did with the infill, how do we keep this in here? Because it is a positive. If we go get a institution of higher learning out on I-10, if we go get us a large medical center around here.
No.
These right here, these types of things, this type of development right here is, and it works. Go to Austin, go to
It's
go
called
to San
master
Marcos.
development, and many places don't allow this because of that. Many cities do not allow mixed-use centers or PUDs. They do straight zoning, and they do it from a land study. It is safer for the people. It is safer for the community to understand straight zoning. And then if they make a change, they have to come back. And we could maybe put language in a master plan that says that, if the developer changes this, they have 2 zoning changes that they won't have to pay for, or they only have to pay the postage on. But straight land master planning in most big cities is done under a land study plan where we straight zone the land. It is always better to straight zone the land.
So are you saying that as a master plan advisory committee, that we should not recommend, are you saying that we should not recommend mixed-use centers?
Yes.
Okay, and as a member of the master plan advisory committee, I say we should.
Okay.
With that being said, is there a way to take the character and intent and put in some sort of guarantee or assurance for such a master plan land use environment?
So in your comp plan, no, you don't write in guarantees. But what I'll say is, the way the city did PUDs was just a broken process. You should have preliminary development plans, PDPs, that are followed up by final development plans, and they both go to the council, which means they're both open and transparent. So rather than referring to the past and the way things were done, the future can be done better. And that requires an open mind and new processes for the zoning that would come to make this a reality. Moreover, I want you all to remember, you place this on a map. This just doesn't go anywhere. A developer doesn't come in after you do the map and say, well, I know that's all single family, but I want a mixed-use center, right? The mixed-use center should go in very specific and very rare locations. I've heard people here say along I-10. This is not for a vacant property along Cibolo Valley Drive, right? That's not where this would go. This is very
Where do we
intense.
have PUDs right now? How many PUDs do we have outstanding built to be right now?
Can I add another layer to that, especially from outside? And we've been looking back at the previous comp plan. The previous comp plan didn't have any mixed-use center located on the map. So these PUDs that we're making reference to were being placed without any guidance from the comprehensive plan as far as location is concerned. So I think back to what Mr. Reed is saying, is you actually have the opportunity, if you're going to use mixed-use centers, to place it in a specific location, whereas previously it was just maybe randomly placed. And that's kind of, again, the outside perspective looking at the previous plan. We didn't even have mixed-use centers.
Well, I mean, again, it's not anything personal with me. This is what the elected officials had said. And if Claudia wants to say that we should have mixed-use centers, then I think that she should vote for whatever she should change.
Actually, hold on. That's actually a great point. And what I think we should do right now with just us is do a yay, nay vote to have this information to be included in a comprehensive plan. Right? I think the language is fine. I mean, but I think we should all just go around here and say, all yays or nays, and let's just do it right now.
And Marcus, as you take that vote, remember, Kelsey and Aaron and Wayne, our consultants, are not presenting this. So your voice is the voice that will introduce this. So however this vote goes, you'll say to council, we took a vote on this one, because this one, we had diverging opinions. And you'll share that with the other bodies at your January 30th meeting. Yeah. So thank you, and I'm going to step back.
All right. So
we're definitely, because I'm not going to be on the 30th, all right? Can we please make sure the council is aware of this?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
I just need to make sure.
But just let you guys know, if we say yes to this, it goes into, potentially goes into the master plan. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to zone 90% of Cibolo for mixed use, all right? So it's just giving us a tool in our toolbox. I mean, as you can already say, I'm a yay for it, in a smart, concise, strategic area. I'm a yay for it, all right? So, but we'll go ahead and vote. Let's say everybody in favor say yay.
Could we maybe have like hands or something, or?
I think
Are
we
you
should
okay?
know, everybody should be able to say why and their reason if they would like.
I don't have to say why, I can just say yay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to,
you
explain your
want.
answer, if you want to say no, go ahead. If you want to, okay. So everybody in favor, raise your hand. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Yeah,
You can recuse yourself. It doesn't
I'm
matter.
recusing myself on this one.
It doesn't matter, guys. It's not like an official vote. And then all the nays. So that's 1.
Two
Okay.
recused.
And 2 recused. So
Me and
yes.
Yeah, I mean, as
I'm gonna have
far
to
as,
do. Yeah. I can't.
I'm listening to a lot of it. I try to be smarter as I get older and listen to everybody's side of the story. This is a future, and I believe that if we take it totally off, we could be running away a lot of future stuff out on I-10. I-10 is the only place I see it could actually happen. 35, we don't have enough frontage. 78, that's a mess. You got the railroad tracks. I mean, it's just, that's the development issue is it's transportation out there, logistics. It's hard for companies. That's why H-E-B didn't go out there. It's why Walmart didn't go out there. You got to get your trucks across railroad tracks. And that's why we don't have a lot of commercial development right along 78 is railroad tracks is a problem. And the only place I see this being, I've been here this is my 30th year in Cibolo, living here. And I see this on I-10 as a potential. That would be the only potential is I-10.
So I have a question and then a comment. The park issue off of 78, wasn't that a mixed-use development plan idea?
Are you talking about the potential
Nimitz-
land
Nimitz
exchange
Park?
between the EDC and the city of Cibolo?
No, that's all zoned.
Not in this type of a mixed use.
So it's going to have a hotel, it's going to have retail, it's going to have park. So it was able to be developed in a mixed-use scenario. So what is difference between that development and this development? Type?
Could I?
Well, right now, just to let you know, I mean, we haven't even got that far right now. So the EDC is not developing anything right now. We're still in deliberations with the city. However, it's semantics, right? I mean, we can call it mixed-use center, right? I mean, now again, right now it's zone C2, I believe. That property is zone C2. Is that correct? The EDC property.
I believe it's C3 or C.
Z3, okay, or C4. So it's zone C4, which has, the land uses in the UDC. Don't let me quote it because I don't know right now, but I know it's zone commercial. And so all those uses that we have, the developers can build that type of, establishment. Now.
In the
wait,
uses table.
Of course, in the uses table. Now, could I equate that and just call that a mixed-use development? Absolutely, right? Because, it's almost essentially the same thing. Now, I think the concern is in a PUD, right, it's not really zone C4 or C2 and, SF5 or whatever the case may be. There's no,
No real control.
well, yes, there's
a loss of
no
setbacks,
well,
there's
there's
a
no
loss of-
linear definition on the type of what you can build on, right? PUD is really you sort of build everything, but I think Mr. Reed was saying that there's going to be other processes in place. But again, the whole Nimitz thing and the EDC property, it's not a PUD, right? I mean, right now Nimitz is Nimitz is a park. EDC property is zone C4, you said, and so if that happens, that materializes, then we would look at rezoning it, but not into a mixed use or call it a PUD or anything like that. Yes.
If I just could add, it's not mixed use in the sense of you're mixing residential in with the commercial.
That's
It is-
correct. That's correct.
The EDC's intent is 100% commercial, but a hotel is commercial as much as a restaurant is. So I wouldn't call it a mixed-use center personally.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
mix of commercial
So,
uses.
and then secondly, with the mixed use, what I'm saying is, right now, we're saying in our comprehensive plan in 2016, we never addressed something like that, right? Hence, that probably caused the issues with PUDs. I think it would be beneficial for the city to at least address it. Doesn't mean we have to use it, but we can address it and control it as well if we define it.
Although we never have.
My comment is, and the reason why I stepped out, is I'm on both sides because I live in Old Town, which was labeled mixed use, which became a whole nightmare, and it pitted the residents against the businesses in a negative light, which is not what we wanted as residents of Old Town. We did not like being in that position, and it was not favorable looking to Cibolo as a friendly community that we are. So it turned up bad blood, it ruined a lot of people's reputations, and I don't want to put that type of misunderstanding in a mixed-use development. On the other side, I would vote yes. That was why no. On the other side, I vote yes because I completely, 100% trust Mr. Reed and his staff in going forward in the betterment of Cibolo. But because I represent Old Town and the heartache we went through, I can't vote yes, but I know if it goes through, we're in good hands for the future.
Not having this tool does not handicap Mr. Reed from being an exceptional planner, nor does it handicap Ms. Lee from running an exceptional department. We don't have the experience doing it. We have never had a successful experience, and it has cost us as taxpayers millions of dollars, and that's a fact.
That's not to say that we never will, because since we're doing this for the future.
We
what's
don't
to
need
say
it.
that we
because
don't have the staff or the expertise.
But even if we did, we don't need it. It's a tool that's unneeded because you have your land studies and you have your preliminary development meetings, whether it's a PUD or not. PUDs and mixed-use centers are loopholes for developers. That's all they are.
Without a mixed use, can we get a Pearl? Can we get something like that?
Yes, straight zoning. Straight zoning. You can absolutely have those fantastic things, and you can have them clearly defined, and they will be defined at land study, and they will go through a pre-development plan, and every single thing that you want. It never needs to have this. These are loopholes. These are tax dollars of ours that get sucked into these things. They're never, ever, ever a good idea for a small town, ever.
So again, I'm relating back to your history, but also your expertise on this. You keep saying, go back to this exact zoning. The master plan committee, this we're being told is we establish where this can be built at, where this mixed use center is. So
It can be built anywhere where we choose the zoning.
But you're saying a land use study, you're going back to zoning and land use study. But if we're going out and we're saying this area is where mixed use centers can be built at, this is what we're classifying these areas at.
You're going to do that anyway. You're going to say, this is a good place for commercial, this is a good place for residential. When we get to the future land use map, that's all we're going to be doing. We're not going to be going, we don't know, slap a PUD on it. That's never going to be how that goes.
But you're saying slap a PUD, and it's not automatically a PUD.
What I'm telling you is that you would look for straight zoning first. That's going to be our tendency, is to look for straight zoning first, then transition housing, then residential. And so you're going to have your commercial, your highest use commercial. Maybe you'll designate certain areas as industrial or higher use commercial. Costco, please come. And then you will have it go down to neighborhood commercial, and you'll begin your transitional housing, and then you'll do your housing. We will do that intrinsically. Nowhere in the process of future land use will we be looking at land going, we don't know, slap a PUD on it. That's not going to be the nature of how we're going to do it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, do y'all mind for time management?
Yeah,
That they move on? Just for time management.
Okay. Thank you, knowing that this will be revisited, I'm sure. So if we were to go through our proper order, the next one would be Old Town. However, we have less than 10 minutes. I don't want to cut that discussion short. I think we definitely want to give that the time and attention that it deserves. So if the committee is okay with it, we will bring that at a future meeting back. So we 100% will bring it back to you all. But just don't want, not, we're not doing Old Town. That's what I was just saying. That's what I was just saying. I know. Thank you.
Hold on. So hold on. So this is,
audible,
this is,
sorry.
this is a controversial topic that I think if we're going into this joint meeting with P and Z and everything else, don't you think it's something we should have a conversation about before we go into it? We just had a heck of a conversation about this other controversial topic, and now we have another controversial topic before we go into one of these.
So I agree with you that for that joint meeting, there should be a discussion about the Old Town place type. What staff is saying is that for tonight, given the limited time we have, we need to hold on that conversation, and then let's have it at the joint meeting.
I think that I would rather us as a committee have a
Okay. Okay, could we for tonight do the other two, because they're very straightforward, and then if you want a special meeting just on Old Town, staff will facilitate that. We won't have Kimley Horn come back for that, and we can do that before January 30th if you're willing to do that. Is that fair?
I'm willing to.
Okay, we're just being honest, and I think y'all know.
Yeah.
We can't do that in 5 minutes,
No.
right? Is that good?
Thank you.
Okay.
I agree. I think that there's input that needs to go into this Old Town.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot,
Thing that
yeah.
we need to, as our committee, needs to have a conversation before we step into this great big committee.
Yes.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You said that well. And Ms. Simics is going to get the calendar, and she's going to have a
Right on.
conversation with you about what date would work for that. Thank you.
All right, let's jump into it. We are going to go ahead and just start with heavy industrial real quick because there were some changes in this one, and then we'll go right to light industrial. But heavy industrial, originally it had warehousing in it. However, warehousing, if you think about it, is not typically a heavy industrial use. The processes are indoors, and so you will see that shifted over to the light industrial as a recommendation. Character and intent, heavy industrial area provides jobs, keep people in the city. This place type is generally found near major transportation corridors such as highways and railways, and may include heavy manufacturing and production uses that occur outdoors and involve the processing of raw materials. That's going to be primarily your bigger distinction between a light industrial use and a heavy industrial use, where those operations are occurring, whether it's indoors or outdoors, and then what they're processing, if it's raw chemicals or materials, right? Primary land uses would be manufacturing, distribution center actually should be under light industrial. That should have been stricken, so just pretend that's stricken there. Heavy industrial, and then major utility facilities. This would be things like your wastewater treatment plants, for example, would fall in that. And then secondary land uses would be civic and institutional, parks and open space, and then just some examples. We don't really have anything within the city to really give an example of this one, but questions?
Okay, so I can't think of the name now. It's on 3009 on the other side of 35. That they were
FedEx,
fighting.
Amazon.
Keith,
They were fighting.
Who?
The residents were fighting against when
Was that a landfill or was that a mine?
it was something.
It was mining.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, so anything
That's gonna be
mining,
heavy.
extraction, processing like that would fall under heavy industrial.
But we don't.
Kelsey, then, sometimes it's really bad to use the word that you're defining in the definition. So maybe under primary land uses, we don't say heavy industrial. You just said what, mining, and what was the other?
Extraction.
Extraction.
services. Mhm.
Maybe we just add more description there?
Yeah, because I know that there's so many issues with when they're
Mining.
blasting, and I mean, I experienced a shock wave, and it was kind of cool, but I don't think the neighborhood would appreciate that. So I think that kind of stuff, I would hope not come to Cibolo's district.
I don't see it. I don't see it coming anywhere. Yeah.
Now, again, I mean, we're defining this, doesn't necessarily
Thank
mean
you.
it has to go
My
on approval.
allergies are killing me.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're defining it, in my opinion, to control it.
Yeah.
Because if you define it, you put it somewhere, at that point, you can control it where you want to place it.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not gonna get used.
Perfect. With that
But we define
adjustment or clarification, are there any other concerns or thoughts on this one?
No, I don't. Anybody?
No, we're good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
if we get it up, Ms. Simics usually says we can finish if we start it. So we're gonna get it.
So this is warehousing, light industrial.
This would be light
industrial,
industrial,
yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
ma'am, which would include the warehousing and distribution center uses, which were previously under heavy industrial.
I would say the same.
Yes, absolutely. We did have more on here than the heavy industrial, but yes, we can definitely flesh that out more. Light industrial business park. The light industrial / business park place type includes business and office related land uses, warehousing, and light industrial and manufacturing uses that occur indoors and do not include the processing of raw materials, so making that distinction from the other type. Office and business park land uses may be supported by nearby retail and restaurant uses. Primary land uses are business parks, technology data centers, flex offices or warehousing, office uses, light manufacturing, we can flesh that out a little more, call centers and logistics. Secondary land uses here could be retail that would be servicing that area, civic and institutional, and then parks and open space. So some example locations are Eischen, of course, is a light industrial use down there, the Schneider Industrial Park, and the Jorgensen Industrial Park. Those are both off of FM 1103.
I like it.
That's good.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
So the light
Yes.
manufacturing, what's allowed will be called out in the uses table in the UDC, and we don't have to worry about that. That's for another day.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Thank you.
We can give some examples if needed in there. Yes.
1, 2, 3, break.
Madam Chair, if you were okay, I'd like Mr. Spencer just to give kind of a rundown of what we're going to accomplish our next meeting. I know we're going to work on another date, but just kind of walk you through kind of our next steps. We do have a handout we would like to send you home with to get some additional feedback on. And then, I'm sorry, I'm like, oh. No, I haven't passed that yet.
Somebody told me it was going to be a short meeting today.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So we're going to get some handouts for you all. We already have them here. So as you notice on your agenda in your packets, there is draft action items. We're just going to give you all some homework to do. So we'll hand out those draft action items. These are coming from our 2016 comp plan. These are mainly the action items that have not been completed or are existingly ongoing. So the other ones that have been completed are not included in your packet, but the ongoing and existing action items, we're asking you questions in terms of should we keep these? Should we make any modifications to these? And if so, what should they be? So you'll see in each of those columns that those are the types of questions that we're asking. And we're asking you to provide your input within 2 weeks from now. So hopefully we can try to have y'all's input incorporated before that January 30th meeting. Or
With some of the changes, what we're asking is at the January 30th meeting, or if you could take a picture or something ahead of time, if you could bring back this paper with your notes on it at the January 30th meeting. If you're not able to, I will come pick it up. You can take a picture of it, scan it, anything like that as well.
yeah, no, thank you. But yeah, if y'all have any questions in terms of those draft action items, y'all know where to contact us, so feel free to do so. But with that being said,
We
Madam.
move on to item 8, which is discussion on the date and time for a future meeting. Ms. Simic.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, there's only one date. Okay. And that date is the 24th, which is a Wednesday.
Okay, so if you are not able to come on a Wednesday, then the January 24th, please email Ms. Simics.
Shit.
Okay. And then number 9, adjournment.
I do a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion. What? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Beat
opposed?
the clock, right? It's 9:30?
January 24th.
Thank you. Absolutely.
when that meeting
Take a
be?
plate to go.